American TV series, starting to profit from young Sheldon. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351, Joining Mib. Where do you live? Do you want a ride? Mike asked as he got into the red Ferrari. You know, the headquarters of the Men in Black is located in a remote area, and it is not easy to get a taxi. Of course, James sat in the passenger seat of the Ferrari and said, if possible, please take me to Brooklyn. For a prosperous metropolis, the complex Brooklyn area is an absolute slum. Speaking of James Edwards, his growth experience can be considered inspiring. A black child who grew up in an orphanage did not go astray because of the influence of the environment. Instead, through his own efforts, he eventually became a formal police officer in Brooklyn. This self-control is incomparable to ordinary people. On the way to Brooklyn, James kept talking about what he saw and heard in the headquarters of the Men in Black. It can only be said that today's experience is too magical for James, and it almost shattered the 3 views he had established since childhood. Do you think I should join them? Suddenly, James changed the subject and asked, don't you already have an answer? Mike asked with a smile. Perhaps it was because he grew up in a bad environment that James naturally had an unstable factor in his character. He was not afraid of challenges and yearned for a more exciting life. This just happened to coincide with the future that Agent K had finally planned. More than half an hour later, Mike sent the rejuvenated James home. After rejecting the other party's drinking party invitation, Mike drove back to his luxurious villa. He had already decided to join the Black organization, and he might run away from home from time to time in the future, so he needed to say hello to Peggy and others in advance. When it came to Sunday, Mike specially made an appointment with the 3 girls of the Devil Body group and took several other girls in the house to go shopping on 5th Avenue in Manhattan. Later, everyone went to a specialty seafood restaurant for a big meal. Then after returning to the villa, Peggy was sent away to her room again. In the spacious living room, a unique big asterisk battle unfolded. Large scene experience plus 99. Dancing experience plus 99. Singing experience plus 99. Holy Spear experience plus 7. Flexibility plus 7. This time, Mike has collected all the 7 Dragon Balls. Time flies and it is Monday. After sending off the 3 girls from the Devil Body group, Mike specifically told the maiden Collins to take good care of Peggy and then drove to the Bridge Authority on 6th Avenue. This time, before Mike knocked on the door, the metal door on the stone pier opened by itself. Welcome to join the Men in Black. Mizzo is waiting for you in the office. The Men in Black at the entrance reception desk were also a little more enthusiastic than last time. Through the long tunnel, Mike came to the room where he had met Mizzo before. Welcome, Mike. I should call you Agent M from now on. Seeing the newcomer, Mizzo smiled. Then, she went straight to the point and said, let me first talk about your treatment. You will have 100,000 yuan of activity funds every month. Secondly, for each extraordinary incident you solve, you will also receive a corresponding bonus. As for the extra expenses when handling extraordinary incidents, you can also ask the organization to reimburse you. The Men in Black organization does not belong to any organization, so they actually need to be self-sufficient in terms of funds. However, the nature of the Men in Black organization determines that they are most exposed to aliens and alien technology. In this case, wrestling some alien technology casually or using alien technology to improve the products on the market can make the organization not lack money and even have some money to spare. Therefore, the Men in Black organization is not stingy with its employees. Do you have any questions about the treatment? After introducing the treatment, Mizzo asked. No, Mike replied. 100,000 yuan a month is not a small amount for ordinary agents, especially when the activity funds can be reimbursed. This is almost all inclusive. And as for Mike, he didn't come here for the money. He valued the database of those extraordinary events more. Very good. Next I will talk about your authority. Mizzo continued, because of the special nature of the X department, you will be dealing with ordinary people and some public institutions in the future. So the organization has prepared several special identity certificates for you, and these identity information can be found on the internet. When necessary, you can exercise some rights appropriately, based on these identities. As he spoke, Mr. Z handed Mike a wallet. It contained FBL, I's, and other certificates, and it seemed that his position was not low. In other words, with these things, Mike could raise an armed force at any time. After Mike accepted the identity certificate, Mizzo stood up and said, "Next, I will take you to see the weapons and equipment that you may use in the future." Then, Mike, led by Mizzo, entered a weapon warehouse full of technology. Here, Mike saw many high-tech weapons commonly used by the men in black. For example, 3-barrel plasma cannon, UNZ No. 4 pistol, upgraded version of UNZ gun cricket, and old-fashioned memory eraser. These are all special weapons for the men in black, and the ex-department that Mike joined also belongs to the men in black, so he also has the right to use these conventional weapons. At this time, Mizzo has introduced the red light memory eraser. This memory eraser is only useful for ordinary people, so we are now preparing to upgrade it and strive to make it useful for extraordinary creatures in the future. In fact, the Men in Black organization is not really trying to hide the aliens and extraordinary powers from ordinary people. This involves the problem of public acceptance and many social problems. Check out the correct version in 16,191 book and 1 forum. Sometimes, a person may be very rational, but a group of people will only follow blindly. In this case, in order to prevent the news beyond human cognition from causing widespread panic among ordinary people, the Men in Black organization is selectively blocking the news of aliens and extraordinary powers. On the other hand, it is also controlling the progress, trying to make the people accept the incredible information to them unconsciously. This involves a sense of proportion. In this process, the promotion of mysterious events, which already has a certain mass base, has gone ahead of the promotion of alien news. Mike's ex-department doesn't use memory erasers much, because people are more accepting of mysterious events. The balance needs to be controlled by individuals. What stands out is subjective initiative. This is a supercar for agents. You can drive it away when you leave. After introducing the memory eraser, Mizzo walked to a black old Ford and said, "Don't look at the old-fashioned appearance of this old car. In fact, it has many functions such as changing appearance, nitrogen acceleration, and magnetic suspension. You can experience it yourself, if you have a chance." Looking at the slight smile on the corner of the other party's mouth, it is obvious that Mizzo also has some bad taste. The rest is the black supersuit. This suit has bulletproof and dustproof functions. Of course, because of the nature of the work of ex-department, you can choose not to wear it at ordinary times. After introducing all the equipment of ordinary black agents at once, Mizzo led Mike to the weapons exhibition hall on the other side. Unlike the other side with a full sense of technology, there are many strange things on the exhibition stand. There are garlic, onions, and grass. There are also silver daggers, old notebooks, and various strange bullets. This is the exorcism notes I asked for from Bishop James at the Holy Cross Cathedral. The contents inside should be helpful to you. Mizzo picked up the old notebook and handed it to Mike solemnly. She opened the notebook and recorded many tips on dealing with evil creatures. For example, silver weapons are very effective against vampires and werewolves, and garlic and onions can suppress werewolves and vampires. Salt can prevent evil forces. Sincerely reading the Bible, Matthew can remove the evil spirits that possess humans. Do we cooperate with the church? Why don't we see holy vessels, holy water, crosses and other things here? Mike asked curiously. After all, when it comes to dealing with evil spirits, the church is the professional counterpart. Chapter 352, Forming Team X. The nature and starting point of the church's exorcism are different from ours. At this point, Mizzo seemed to have something to hide, and changed the subject. In short, if you encounter an evil spirit incident that you can't solve, you can go to the Holy Cross Church to ask Bishop James for help. As for other clergy, you don't have to pay attention to them. The nature of the church determines that the purpose of their exorcism is more to collect people's faith. This is somewhat inconsistent with the concept of the Men in Black organization to maintain world peace. You know, among many mysterious events, The miracles performed by the god also have a great impact on the people. Okay, that's all for the introduction of weapons and equipment. Mizo said, next, I will take you to see an old friend. Maybe it will be helpful for you to form your own team. Every candidate in the X department has a team to form to deal with various situations. Not long after, Mike was taken into an empty room by Mizo later. Mr. Z also walked in with a girl in leather armor. The girl was slim and had delicate features, but she wore dark makeup and a short haircut that was less than 1 centimeter. This gave her a very dangerous and weird feeling. "It's you!" Without waiting for everyone to react, the girl roared, as if she had a deep hatred, and quickly rushed towards Mike. Fighting experience plus 88. Cold weapon experience plus 66. Firearms experience plus 50. Physique main attribute plus 3. Strength attribute plus 5. Curse. Demon body. Damaged version. What is this? When Mike got many light balls, the girl's crazy attack followed. Amid the whistling sound, the girl's eyes were fierce and her attacks were fierce. Hands, elbows, fists, legs, and even teeth all became her weapons. Perhaps because of anger, although the girl had excellent fighting skills, she fought like a beast desperately. However, the gap in strength cannot be changed by will. After dodging twice, Mike found the right time to grab the girl's wrist and then used a small backhand to lock her up. "Who are you?" Mike looked at the girl who was struggling in his hands and felt that she looked familiar. "Let me go." The girl's eyes were burning with anger and she had lost her mind and roared, "You killed Jennifer." Jennifer? For Mike, it was already a very old name. "Are you Neddy?" Mike vaguely recognized the girl's identity and then sighed, "You have changed a lot now." Neddy Lasniki Demon, Jennifer's best friend, the good girl in the eyes of teachers and classmates, has always been a fresh style. Mike really couldn't connect such a girl with the dark style crazy woman in front of him. The two not only have a big difference in temperament, but also have a little change in appearance. Maybe it was Mike's voice that touched the girl's violent nerves again, causing her to roll up again regardless of the body, trying to strangle Mike's neck with her legs. Is this really okay? Looking at the scene on the field, Mr. Z, who had retreated to the side, asked Mizo beside him, "Don't worry, if the information is correct, our Agent M is not an ordinary person." Mizo said confidently, "And with us watching here, Neddy won't make any big trouble. The Men in Black is not a charity organization." Knowing that Neddy is at risk of losing control, how could the organization not have countermeasures? For example, the inconspicuous metal collar on the girl's neck not only has the function of discharging electricity, but also can start the self-destruction program when necessary. At the same time, Mike had already thrown the girl to the ground in the middle of the field and controlled her again with 1 foot. Faced with such great malice from the girl, Mike naturally had no sense of sympathy. After solving the problem, he turned to look at Mizo and asked, "What does this mean?" "Please don't get me wrong," Mizo explained. "Miss Neddy is a reserve member we prepared for your X team. After the Jennifer incident, Neddy had a strange mutation, so she was taken back to the headquarters by the Men in Black. As time went by, the girl's physique continued to improve, while her human emotions gradually disappeared. She seemed to have turned into a monster." After Mizo explained to Mike, she motioned him to move his feet away, and then persuaded the girl, "Needy, if you don't want to be locked up here until you die of old age, then joining Mike's X team is your best choice." Needy, who had undergone a mutation, was no longer suitable to live with ordinary people. If she didn't join the X special department, the best case scenario for her was that she would die of old age in the headquarters of the Men in Black, and her body would be sealed in the Mysterious Things shelter. Hearing Mizo's persuasion, Needy's eyes flickered and stopped. Obviously, she still had the ability to think and communicate with others. On this side, Mizo smiled after seeing the girl's reaction and then said, "Mr. Z, please take Needy down to clean up and help her get a new identity card." Speaking of which, Needy was quite innocent. This girl had not done anything wrong, but because of the mutation in her body, she lost her ordinary life. After the girl left, Mizo also told Mike about the girl's situation in detail, from her physical fitness to her combat ability. A correct version can be found on the 16:9 book forum. In fact, even without Mizzo telling him, Mike could feel from the contact just now that Neddy's physical fitness was probably 3 to 4 times that of an ordinary person. Coupled with the girl's combat ability, she is definitely a killer for ordinary people. Finally, Mizzo handed a small red trigger to Mike and solemnly told him not to use it unless necessary. Obviously, this trigger is the backup plan of the man in black to deal with Neddy's rampage. I don't think Neddy is suitable to be my teammate. Mike refused after receiving the trigger. To him, Neddy is more like a trouble. As far as Mike knows, Neddy worshipped Jennifer very much when they were in school before, and the two were almost inseparable. Neddy even imitated Jennifer's style and behavior pattern. In this case, Mike has reason to suspect that the relationship between the two is more than a friendship between best friends. Mike, who plotted to kill Jennifer, had a life and death feud with Needy. Don't refuse yet. Mizzo softened her voice and said, your team needs manpower, and Needy has the ability to help you. In the end, just think of it as helping that girl. Mizzo obviously had some sympathy for the girl's experience. It's settled. Without waiting for Mike to refute again, Mizzo decided on the matter. Then, she took out a document and said, next, let's talk about your first mission. Before, the reason why I let Needy fight Mike was also to test Mike's ability. Obviously, Mike passed the test. At this time, the top secret document was showing the information of a mysterious organization, Assassin's League, Loom, Divine Revelation, Magical Healing Medicine, etc. According to the information, this Assassin's League is a killer organization with the slogans of doing justice for the heavens and killing one person to save more people. And their assassination targets are exactly from the list given on a mysterious loom. From politicians to businessmen, they may become their targets. The Assassin's League calls this God's Will. Chapter 353 Test. Your mission this time is to take down the magical loom and the mysterious healing medicine of the assassin organization, Mizzo said, and at the same time, took out a recent assassination list of the Assassin's League, explaining, we have investigated this assassination list, and most of the people on it are not people who deserve to die. Obviously, the Assassin's League, which has always advocated doing justice for the heavens, either has a problem with the loom with divine inspiration function, or there is a traitor in their organization. In short, the Assassin's League has become a slaughter knife in the hands of some people. Of course, all this has nothing to do with Mike. His mission is to stop the other party from continuing to do evil. At the same time, take back the loom with mysterious power and the mysterious healing medicine in the hands of the Assassin's League. According to the information, the mysterious healing medicine can not only treat external injuries, but also allow people to regenerate broken bones overnight. This is your first mission, so there is no time limit. You can start the action after you are fully prepared. After Mike finished reading the information, Mizzo said considerately, of course, if you still feel unsafe, you can also call other agents in the organization for support before the action. The division of labor between ordinary agents and candidates for the X department, who belong to the same men in black, is not so clear. You must know that before the establishment of the X department, those ordinary agents would also deal with some extraordinary events. Don't worry, I will do my best. After feeling the kindness of Mizzo, Mike responded with a smile. It should be noted that the Men in Black organization is not incapable of eradicating the assassin organization of the Assassin's League. It is just for the purpose of training Mike that this relatively simple task was given to him to practice. Then, Mike, who took over the task, was sent to the lounge by Mizzo, where his new team member Needy was waiting. On the other side, James Edwards also completed the MIBS induction. He put on a black suit and now has his own code name, Agent J. He was always talking and was communicating with his partner, Agent K, in the lounge. K, do you know the difference between you and me? Agent J said with a chuckle. We both wear this old-fashioned suit, but I think I look more handsome than you. Handsome? Then, looking at Mike, who was wearing an old-fashioned suit, but looked like a star, Agent J became autistic. Hey, sports boy, maybe I should call you Agent M now. Agent J adjusted his mood and came over. Where's your partner? Why can't I see him? I joined the X Special Department, and the organization didn't assign a partner to me, but they prepared a team member for my team. Mike answered modestly. From applying to joining, the two can be said to have a very good relationship. Besides being a bit talkative, Agent J left a good impression on Mike. Wow, don't be shy. Agent J, who was not led by the old agent, let out a strange cry and introduced himself in a boastful manner. This is my partner, Agent K. Although he is old, I heard that he is a very capable old agent who has solved alien riots many times and maintained world peace. Next, we will also investigate the recent alien immigration issue together. As agents in the same Men in Black organization, they sometimes help each other, so there is no need to keep secrets from each other. The immigration issue that Agent J mentioned is that recently many aliens living on the blue planet seem to have sensed the danger and are escaping the blue planet on a large scale. This abnormal behavior has also attracted the attention of the Men in Black organization. Mike, out of respect, greeted the serious-looking Agent K. This old agent is indeed very capable and is also an elite in the Men in Black organization. At the same time, Agent K was also looking at the young man in front of him. You know, those who can become candidates for the X department at least represent the ability to stand on their own. After that, after putting on a stiff smile to express his friendliness, Agent K turned his gaze back to his new partner with an expressionless face. Compared with Mike, Agent J, who was complacent without knowing why, was very consistent with his rookie status. Just when Agent J was boasting happily, Mr. Z brought over Neddy, who was wearing a black uniform. Okay, the person I'm waiting for is here. I should also go back to prepare for the mission. Mike waved to Agent J and said goodbye, then, see you next time. After watching Mike and Neddy leave, Agent J rarely closed his mouth and fell into silence. What's wrong with you? Seeing the autistic look of his new partner, Agent K was a little uncomfortable for a while. This is unfair. Why is the partner of the sports boy a young and beautiful woman, while I have to work with an old man? While complaining, Agent J seemed to be full of resentment. Although Neddy's temperament is very cold, she is undoubtedly a great beauty with her slim figure and delicate features. Even the darkness on her gave her a unique charm. Old man. After understanding his partner's thoughts, even a conservative person like Agent K couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He had begun to regret his previous concern for his new partner. On the other side, Mike, who had left the headquarters of the Men in Black, came to the wilderness outside 6th Avenue and stopped the red Ferrari. Needy, who was driving the supercar provided by the Men in Black organization, was also forced to stop on the side of the road. This woman was still too dangerous for Peggy and others, so Mike needed to test her before taking her back to the villa. Because of Needy's special nature, Ms. O specifically asked Mike to help take care of the girl before they parted. At the same time, Ms. O also said that if Needy showed a dangerous side during their future cooperation, Mike could choose to return the product at any time. Mike, holding the red remote control in his hand, got off the sports car and saw Needy still sitting in the supercar with her eyes fixed on him, with no intention of getting out of the car. A perfect version at 1619 Book Bar. After leaving the headquarters of the Men in Black, the woman's behavior was unexpectedly gentle. This won't do. Mike went to the black Ford Classic car, knocked on the window, and confessed, "You guessed right. Your best friend Jennifer was indeed killed by my design. How about it? Do you want to avenge her?" Mike can be sure that when he pushed Jennifer into the abyss in front of the Minnesota Demon altar, there was no one else next to him. Therefore, most of Neddy's hatred for him was based on speculation. Now Mike chose to tell the truth, more to give the other party a reason to act. Sure enough, after hearing the truth, Neddy showed signs of blackening, and there was a red light flashing in her eyes. "That's it, hurry up." Facing the girl's malice, Mike, who was holding the remote control, showed a smile on his face. In this situation, Mike was more like a demon who tempted ordinary people to make mistakes. But he seemed to underestimate the girl's endurance. Neddy, who was tense and in a fighting posture a moment ago, glared at Mike for a few times and suddenly turned back to look forward, as if nothing had happened. TSK Mike, whose plan failed, shook his head in disappointment and warned, "You can follow me, but remember to be honest. If I find out that you do something out of line, I will send you to see your best friend without hesitation." Without paying attention to the girl's reaction, Mike turned back to the Ferrari. After he left, Neddy, who was in the old Ford car behind him, saw her current image in the rearview mirror and immediately showed a look of disgust on her face. In fact, 2 years ago, in Minnesota Academy, Neddy was the first person to fall in love with Mike. It was only because of the girl's inner shyness that her best friend Jennifer took advantage of it. If things had developed normally, this would probably be another bloody love triangle. But because of the demon incident, things took a turn. Neddy, who has gradually lost her human emotions, doesn't know how she feels about Mike. The other party killed her best friend, so she should hate him. But when the person she once liked appeared in front of her again, Neddy had a strange feeling. Like hate. Maybe both. Chapter 354 in action. In the luxurious villa, seeing Mike bring back another girl, the expressions on Lina and the others' faces froze for a moment. However, they, who had seen Mike's fickleness, quickly adjusted their mood. "Mike, won't you introduce us?" Lina asked, giving Mike a way out. "Needy, now I'm my colleague." Mike was observing the other party's reaction when introducing Needy. Once the other party showed any abnormality, Mike would subdue her without hesitation. It was just surprising that Needy's eyes were cold when she looked at Mike, but she was very calm when facing the other girls in the villa. Although the cold attitude was not friendly, it did not show any malice. "So your name is Needy, you look cool." Lina went up to greet Needy. Needy, who has a gothic dark style and a cold temperament, is indeed very cool to Lina and other girls who have never seen the world. And because of the relationship with Mike, the girls who misunderstood something were friendly to Needy. "By the way, my name is Lina. The girl wearing the maid outfit over there is Carly, and the one next to her is Jess. We will be friends from now on." Later, Lina tried to help Neddy integrate into the group. A happy scene. This is not what Mike wants to see. He has decided to find an opportunity to reveal some of Neddy's situation to Lina and others, at least to let them have some precautions. "Okay, Lina." Mike called the enthusiastic girl and turned to the little maid and said, "Carly, go to the first floor and clean up a room for Neddy. And Jess and Collins, you will move to the 3rd floor in the future." Seeing Mike's serious expression, Lina and other girls also realized that the relationship between Mike and his female colleague did not seem to be as close as they imagined. After dinner, after personally sending Neddy to the 1st floor, Mike returned to the living room on the 3rd floor and explained Neddy's situation to several girls: emotional deficiency, violent tendencies. Finally, Mike did not forget to remind the girls not to be alone with Neddy at any time. Next, to celebrate Jess and Collins moving into the 3rd floor, Mike rewarded them well and brought Lina and the little maid with him. The battle lasted for more than 2 hours, and then Mike, who went to wash up, pushed open Peggy's door. In addition to plush toys, the small room was filled with professional books of various subjects. At this time, the little girl was wearing huge headphones and lying in front of the computer, as if she was learning knowledge. As Mike broke in, Peggy was startled at first. Then, seeing the other party wearing a asterisk shirt, the little girl seemed to have misunderstood something. She unconsciously tightened her legs under the desk, and a hint of expectation appeared in her eyes. "I didn't disturb your study." Looking at the little girl's red face, Mike said awkwardly, "I want you to help me check some information." Yes, in addition to the trouble of Needy, Mike is preparing to recruit a few reliable members for his ex-team. Originally, because of the special nature of him, Mike also considered recruiting Scott, the werewolf who was studying at Columbia University, and Mark, who had the buff of returning to youth. Just thinking of the two people, one is still a child, and the other is an ordinary person who has returned to youth. So Mike quickly passed this idea. After all, to deal with a professional killer organization, some professional talents are still needed. Dog lover John Wick, retired employee Liam Neeson, mechanic Arthur, courier Frank Martin. Mike said a list of people. These people have one thing in common, that is, they are all ruthless people, which is very consistent with the recruitment requirements of the X-team. On the other side, the little girl Peggy, in order to facilitate learning, taught herself some computer technology, including firewall intrusion technology. Originally, as Mike approached, the little girl smelled a good smell on him, and her head was a little dizzy. But soon, after seeing the information displayed on the computer, Peggy's head cleared up. After contacting the strange woman who lived in the 1st floor, Peggy could easily think that the job Mike was applying for this time was not so simple. These people don't look like good people. What do you want to do with them? Peggy asked tentatively. I want to work with them on something. Mike explained, saw the worry in the little girl's eyes, and then comforted her. Don't worry, the nature of my work is very safe. Besides, I'm not as weak as I look. While talking, he smiled and made a bodybuilding gesture to show that he was very strong. It didn't take long for the little girl's attention to be diverted. Then, looking at the information he needed on the computer, Mike picked John Wick, a dog lover, from this group of desperate criminals. Compared with others, Wick, who had just been expelled from the New York *** hotel, was unemployed, his wife was still alive, and his dog was still at home. Such a person is easy to be manipulated. Okay, you should go to bed early too. If you stay up late to study for a long time, you will not grow tall. After memorizing the information on the computer, Mike reached out and rubbed the little girl Peggy's head and then left her room. What? Peggy, who was treated like a child again, protested with dissatisfaction. Read the correct version in 1619 1 book 1 bar. After everyone left, the girl stood up unconfidently and gestured her height. 1.65 meters tall, not short. It was just that she accidentally saw her undeveloped little balls, which made Peggy find the problem. It was noon the next day. Mike, who had specially put on a black suit, sat in the passenger seat of Needy and rushed to the Bronx. The Bronx belongs to Apple City and is one of the 3 slums. The information shows that the killer who was expelled from the New York hotel is living there with his Japanese wife. The old Ford car passed through the dirty and messy main road of the Bronx full of homeless people and went all the way to the more remote suburbs. Finally, the supercar stopped in front of a separate cabin. At this time, John Wick and his wife in a wheelchair were basking in the sun in the yard, with a beagle playing happily at their feet. If you don't consider the surrounding environment, this scene can be regarded as very warm. Who are you looking for? John Wick asked when he saw the people coming, while vaguely protecting his wife behind him. Out of the killer's intuition, he smelled the smell of danger from Mike and the other man. John Wick. Mike looked at the man in front of him. Perhaps because he had not experienced the pain of losing his wife and dog, the man in front of him was not as decadent as he imagined. Although he still had long hair and looked a little unkempt, his sharp eyes could not deceive people. This is a ferocious wolf. On the opposite side, the man whose identity was exposed immediately tensed up, as if he would suddenly attack and hurt someone at any time. We have no ill intentions. In fact, I have some business to discuss with you. After showing goodwill, Mike asked, are you sure we want to talk here? John, who had lived an ordinary life for a while, had decided not to interfere in the affairs of the Jianghu, and Mike and the other man did not look like ordinary people at first glance. Contacting them means trouble. It's just that considering his wife's illness, a lot of money is needed for treatment. After thinking for a moment, John said, come with me. Then he pushed his wife in the wheelchair and took Mike into the cabin. Chapter 355 Assassin's Alliance. The cabin looked as simple as the outside, and even many of the furniture looked very rough, obviously the carpentry work done by the former killer himself. However, the pots of flowers on the windowsill and the exquisite handmade pendants everywhere in the house made this shabby cabin full of the breath of life. Just as Mike was looking around, John, who had sent his wife to the compartment, came out again. What do you want to talk to me about? John, with a bulge on his lower back, stared at Mike and asked directly. Obviously, he came out again with weapons hidden on his body. On the other side, Nidhi, who felt the murderous aura, also vigilantly reached for her waist, which happened to be where she kept her weapons. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. This is not the way to entertain guests, Mike said calmly, as the host here, facing guests from afar. Shouldn't you prepare a drink for us first? Maybe Mike's reaction was too indifferent, so John couldn't figure out the other party's intentions for a while. So, after staring at Mike for a few more times, he suddenly turned around and went to the kitchen. Soon, a pot of freshly brewed black tea was placed on the table, and John sat opposite Mike. A little buffer time allowed the former killer to calm down a lot. John Wick, a former professional killer at the New York hotel, has performed more than 20 A-level missions and more than 50 B-level missions. Mike began to recount John's experience. When the man opposite was about to get restless, he changed the subject and said, "Now, on behalf of the X Special Department, I will give you a chance to re-choose your life. Join my X team, and I will help you solve some of your troubles. Or eject me," and then make a gesture to my team member Needy. Because of his killer identity, John has been blacklisted in public institutions, and it is difficult to find an ordinary job that requires identity proof. Because he also violated the rules of the New York hotel, his reputation in the killer circle is also notorious. It can be said that John has no place in both the black and white worlds. In this case, he wants to make money, to treat his wife's illness, and Mike is his best choice. Why do you work in an organization? John was obviously tempted, but for the sake of caution, he then continued to ask, "And how do you prove that your organization has no ill will towards me?" As a desperate criminal, John could even give up his life. But he was still worried about his wife, and what he feared most was dealing with police officers. You know, the job he did before was not glorious. If he was sent to prison by accident, he would at least be banged for life. "I work for MIB, and we also cooperate with FBL, ICE and other public security departments." Mike showed a bunch of documents and said with a big banner, "As long as you join my team, I can reapply for an identity certificate for you, so that you have the opportunity to live in the sun. At the same time, as a member of my team, you will have a fixed salary of 50,000 yuan per month. And every time you perform a special mission, there will be an additional bonus." The purpose of showing the identity is to prove the strength of the organization behind him and deepen the persuasiveness. And the salary given can solve John's urgent needs. As a former killer, John didn't save much money at all. Now the expenses required for his wife's illness have made his situation visibly tight. After hearing the conditions offered by Mike, John was obviously more tempted. After his eyes flickered a few times, he seemed to have made up his mind and decided to take a gamble. "If what you said is true, I'm willing to join your team. But before that, I still want to know what the MIB department you mentioned does specifically. And what is the specific content of our mission?" As expected of a person who has been a killer, his mind is delicate. But his attitude has also shown that Mike's recruitment plan is mostly successful. MIB is a department that handles special events and is committed to maintaining world peace after basically confirming the relationship. Mike said familiarly, "As for the specific content of the mission, you will know in 2 days. Now, I need you to help me check the information of a person named Wesley. Wesley is an ordinary office worker. It is very likely that he has been taken away by the Assassin's League to deal with his father, the former defected member of the Assassin's League, Cross." Mike had asked Chris to help investigate Wesley before, but it was a pity that the other party did not work in any company under the name of Wall Street. However, rats have their own ways. In this case, a little person like Wesley is very suitable for John, who has a huge network of relationships at the grassroots level, to investigate. Faced with Mike's familiarity, John wanted to say that he was not ready to start work yet. "How about this? As a work reward, I will pay you this month's salary in advance." Mike, who could find someone to reimburse the bills, generously chose the money offensive. Then, looking at the 50,000 yuan added to John's mobile phone account, he wisely shut up. He needed the money too much now. 10 minutes later, Mike, who had explained some precautions to John, took Needy out of the cabin. Helen, who had been paying attention to the situation outside in the compartment, saw Mike and the other person leave and slid to her husband in a wheelchair and gently held his hand. The woman has smooth long hair and a gentle temperament, which makes people who stay by her side have a kind of magic of calmness. Everything will be fine. Looking at his wife beside him, John felt happy and felt that his life had motivation. Then, in order to reassure his wife, John briefly told her about Mike's identity and situation. A perfect version at 16,191 book and bar. On the other hand, Mike actually already knew the specific location of the Assassin's League headquarters and was ready to take action in 2 days. As for checking Wesley's situation, it was just a casual move. The reason was that the other party had the potential to become a member of his team. Then, in the next day or so, Mike went to the Men in Black headquarters to apply for funds and weapons, and also helped John solve the problem of his new identity. Although the Men in Black organization does not belong to any organization, the power of the organization is unquestionable. At least now, there is no criminal record of John in the information network of public institutions. 2 days later, Mike, who was sitting in a supercar, met John in a black suit in the suburbs of Queens District in New York. He had tidied his appearance, and if it were not for the beard on his face, he looked more like an elite white-collar worker. I got the news about Wesley. A few days ago, he was taken to the abandoned factory in front by a woman. John, who had a goal to achieve, quickly entered the role and continued to report, "I have been squatting here for a day, and I haven't seen anyone come out of the factory. But I also made an unexpected discovery. It seems that someone is monitoring the abandoned factory like me. All signs indicate that there should be some secret hidden in the factory in front of us." As a former top killer, John's reconnaissance and counter-reconnaissance capabilities are excellent. Thank you for your hard work. As for the person hiding in the dark, we don't need to care about him for the time being. Mike affirmed John's work attitude, and then took out a new certificate and handed it to the other party with a handful of UNZ number 4, and continued, "Now welcome your new identity. You don't have to worry about someone coming to check the asterisk list in the future." The new identity card made John's emotions slightly moved, and he had a general understanding of the power of MIB. Joining such a capable organization, it seems not bad. Then, holding UNZ number 4, John asked curiously, "What is the asterisk list?" Obviously, this former killer didn't get the asterisk list talk. "You'll know in a moment." Mike smiled and kept it a secret. Then John saw Mike, who had taken a giant 3-barreled gun from his old Ford car, arrogantly walk to the abandoned factory and slammed the door. "Is anyone home? Open the door. Check the list." Queens is one of the 3 slums in New York City. There are many abandoned factories that have closed down in the suburbs, but it is rare to see such a large abandoned factory building. Chapter 356 Loom. The Assassin's League traces back to its origins. It was actually an organization supported by the Brotherhood of Mutual Aid. At the beginning, this organization was also based on justice. But later, when the names of the Brotherhood members appeared on the list of guilty people displayed on the loom with divine revelation, everything changed. In particular, the name of the Brotherhood member who first appeared on the loom was Sloan, the current boss of the Assassin's League. In this case, in order to save his life, Sloan used his position to tamper with the assassination list. After tasting the sweetness, he slowly turned the Assassin's League into a weapon for the upper-level Brotherhood political forces to deal with political enemies. At the same time, a model of seeking huge profits in missions was formed. The former Assassin's League's first killer, Cross, chose to betray the organization because he discovered Sloan's secret. However, Sloan did not have the confidence to deal with the Cross, who had extraordinary assassination ability. Therefore, he found the son of Cross who was abandoned outside and wanted to use the other party's identity to solve the trouble of Cross. Therefore, Wesley was taken to the abandoned factory for a few days to train assassination ability. In addition to a series of useless abilities such as reconnaissance and counter-reconnaissance, if Wesley wants to kill the Cross as soon as possible, what he needs to exercise most is fighting, cold weapons and firearms. At this time, he was in the large yard of the abandoned factory, being taught how to use cold weapons by a fat man holding a butcher knife and called Butcher. When the two passed by, the Butcher used his flexible wrist to exert force and chopped Wesley to the ground with the back of the knife. At this time, the Butcher heard an irritable knock on the door. "Check the asterisk table." "What is that?" The Butcher, who was violent in character, was annoyed by the knock on the door, and he was about to teach the troublemaker a lesson with a butcher knife. But as soon as he walked to the door, he was blown into a meatball by an oncoming laser beam. The laser beam, shining with light blue light, passed through the yard and blew up a corner of the factory building behind. In the dust and rubble, intermittent wails and exclamations rang out in the factory building. Soon, a dozen armed members of the Assassin's League rushed out in anger. "How rude. They made us wait for so long without opening the door," unlike the angry members of the Assassins group. Mike, who put away the 3-barrel plasma cannon outside the abandoned factory, seemed to have done something insignificant. On the side, John, who had never seen such a rude act, couldn't help but twitch his eyes. Although he didn't know what happened, Mike, the boss, had already made a good start. Out of killer instinct, John, holding the Miraco No. 4, immediately rushed into the factory. On the other side, Needy also drew out an alloy short knife from her waist and a Miraco No. 4 gun, and followed closely. In an instant, gunshots rang out in the abandoned factory. Of course, this movement came and went quickly. Firearms experience plus 99. Gunpowder manufacturing experience plus 99. Cold weapon experience plus 99. Mixed martial arts experience plus 99. When Mike walked into the factory yard, there were already more than a dozen bodies of members of the Assassin's League lying on the ground, looking miserable. The Miraco 4th is equivalent to a small plasma cannon, a powerful weapon specially designed by the MIB organization to deal with aliens. It is powerful, and has the functions of burst and splash. In this case, it is a luxury for the creatures hit by it to leave their bodies intact. And John and Needy, equipped with this weapon, are simply killing gods and Buddhas. In the corner of the yard, Wesley, who had not figured out the situation, and was kneeling on the ground pretending to be dead, looked at the purgatory scene caused by the Miraco 4th around him, and finally couldn't help vomiting. This newbie in the assassin world is really lucky. Because he had no weapons in his hands, and fell to the ground, John and Needy regarded him as a non-threatening person, and did not kill him immediately. This gave this newbie in the assassin world a chance to breathe. Now, John has bravely counterattacked into the factory, while Needy is fighting with a sexy woman who is wearing sexy clothes, and can fire curved bullets. For a while, the two of them have no time to clean up Wesley, the slippery fish. Super adrenaline secretion. Characteristic. Bullet time. Mike, holding a special ball of light, glanced at Wesley who was like a puddle of mud not far away, and continued to walk slowly. His goal is the special loom in the center of the factory. This loom with the ability to distinguish between good and evil can be said to be God's blessing to mankind. Interesting. Walking to the loom, that suddenly started to run on its own, Mike immediately reached out and grabbed the dart-shaped shuttle that shuttled back and forth in the machine. Blessing. Guilt perception. Characteristic. Sure enough, Mike guessed correctly that the one with the divine inspiration ability in the loom was a small shuttle in his hand. Stopped just as Mike was feeling his new ability. Fox, who was always paying attention to the loom, left his opponent, Needy, and suddenly shot at Mike with a high difficulty. The bullet drew an arc, bypassed many obstacles, and pointed directly at Mike's forehead. At the same time, Sloan, the leader of the Assassin's League, who was hiding in the corner of the factory, also seized the opportunity to shoot from behind, aiming at the back of Mike's head. Puff as blood flowers exploded on his forehead. Sloan stared and fell to the ground unwillingly. At the other end of the screen, in a hidden pile of weeds outside the factory, a middle-aged man with a full beard slowly put away the sniper in his hand. As for Needy, she took advantage of Fox's distraction to rush forward and use the alloy short knife in her hand to instantly stab the opponent into a hornet's nest. No seeing the hot Fox die in front of him, Wesley, who was already vomiting, burst out with great potential with his eyes wide open. Amidst the roar, he turned around and picked up a pistol from the ground, then, lying flat, fired a curved bullet. The target was exactly Needy, who was not far away. Ding in the 16:9 book forum, a correct version. Amid the harsh echo, sparks burst out from Needy's dagger, who turned in time, proving that she split the bullet. Then, while Wesley was trying to fire the second shot, Needy, with her extraordinary physique, leaped in front of the fish that had escaped the net. The blade protruded with a sound of breaking through the air. Wait a minute, Needy. When Mike's voice sounded, the alloy dagger was only a few centimeters away from Wesley's throat. The cross outside the factory on the other side also stopped pulling the trigger when Mike said pause. It can be said that the pause at the critical moment saved at least 2 or even 3 lives. Aren't you coming out yet? Cross. Mike stepped forward and took the pistol from the frightened Wesley, and at the same time, signaled Needy to put away the dagger, and then looked at the weeds outside the factory. Not long after, a sloppy middle-aged man with a full beard came out with a sniper rifle. This middle-aged man who was ordinary in all aspects was Cross, the former #1 killer of the Assassin's League, and he was also Wesley's biological father. A man who let his son grow up in an orphanage in order not to bring trouble to his son. For the same reason, this man also watched his son's life in a mess, but never thought of intervening in it. Now, Mike has grasped the other party's weakness, so he has to show up. Child, do you still remember me? Cross came out, still a little bit of fatherly responsibility. He did not immediately deal with Mike, but looked at his son Wesley affectionately. You are the Cross? You killed my father. Wesley, who learned the identity of the middle-aged man from Mike, struggled to stand up and fight the enemy who killed his father. Even the cowardice and the killing of Firefox were thrown behind him. No, son. I'm your father. The Assassin's League deceived you. Out of guilt, the Cross took a few blows, and his son hit him in the face. Then, in Wesley's confused expression, the Cross, who knew all the truth, tried his best to explain. The scene was very touching for a while. Of course, Mike was not interested in watching the drama of father and son recognizing each other here. After shaking his head, he said to John and the others, let's go and see what good things there are in the Assassin's League. The X-Special Team, where Mike is located, has a very large degree of freedom in its tasks, except for the dangerous goods that must be handed in. The MIB headquarters will turn a blind eye to other seized items. Boss, I saw you dodge the bullet in an instant before. How did you do it? On the way to the warehouse behind the Assassin's League, John couldn't help but ask the doubts in his heart. The moment Mike dodged the bullet before, John happened to see it when he returned to the front hall after completing the clearance mission. That unreasonable scene caused a huge shock to the mind of the former killer. It's just a little trick. If you want to learn it, you will have many opportunities in the future. Mike, who has already regarded Wesley and his son as reserve members of his team, also painted a big pie for John. If everything goes well, he can let the Cross teach John the skill of turning bullets in the future. As for Mike, when facing the bullets coming from the front and back, he turned on the bullet time flexibly. Because of their physical constitution, most people can only shoot bullets that can turn after turning on the bullet time. Mike, who has a physical constitution more than 10 times that of ordinary people, felt like he became the Flash when he turned on the bullet time. Everything around him became a slow motion playback in his eyes. In this case, it is not a big problem to avoid 2 bullets. After all, the curved bullets fired by Firefox and Sloan do not have the ability to track, and killing the target depends more on skills and prediction. So in the period after the curved bullet is fired, in theory, as long as the reaction and speed are fast enough, it can be avoided. Chapter 357 Harvest. Oh, it turns out that being a killer is so profitable in the warehouse behind the Assassin's League. Mike, who violently opened the giant safe, looked at the piles of gold bars and bundles of rice and dollars in front of him, and smiled. Who would complain that they have too much money? Then, Mike saw a few cheese-shaped healing medicines in the deepest part of the safe, and there was a healing medicine formula next to it. This thing should be one of the 2 things that the MIB headquarters wanted to get from the Assassin's League. Mike picked up a soap-sized healing medicine and threw it into a bathtub-sized pool beside him. Soon, the water in the pool turned milky white like milk. John, go down and try, Mike immediately said to the team member next to him. John still didn't understand Mike's brain circuit this time, but out of obedience, he didn't hesitate too much and put on his suit and invaded the pool. Not long after, the milky white liquid in the pool began to solidify slowly. At the same time, John felt numb all over his body, as if countless small hands were massaging him. It was this discovery that prevented him from jumping out of the pool in shock at the change in the liquid. It seemed that it would take some time for the healing medicine to take effect, so Mike turned to another team member, Neddy, and said, your next task is to move everything in this safe to the car. Strangely enough, although Neddy looked at Mike with a cold look during this period, she was obedient to his instructions. She was a qualified toolman. In the back warehouse, Mike, who had arranged the tasks, began to check his harvest after he had some free time. The light ball of super adrenaline secretion, characteristic bullet time, was a magical skill for Mike at this stage. With the ability of slow motion, his combat power increased by at least 10 times. As for the light ball of blessing, guilty perception, characteristic, it was more inclined to mysterious measurement, a bit like the eye of judgment of Ghost Rider. Of course, this characteristic light ball did not have the ability to judge when it acted on Mike, but only retained the ability to distinguish between good and evil. Mike had used this ability to observe Needy and others before. Surprisingly, Needy, who had just eliminated more than a dozen people from the Assassin's League, did not have much sin value, just like little white Wesley. On the contrary, John and Cross, the two former assassins, were both wrapped in thick black air. Based on this, Mike deduced that his guilt perception ability should be rationalism. In other words, no matter what you think in your heart, as long as you do something wrong that hurts good people, you will be considered guilty. If you eliminate a bad guy who is already guilty, there will be no guilt value. It is a bit like causality. Therefore, if we really talk about it, Mike's rationalistic guilt perception ability is actually very different from the Ghost Rider's idealistic eye of judgment ability. Host of the pickup system, Mike Quinn, Zaokun, intelligence 197, genius 140 plus, super genius 160 plus, super genius 180 plus, constitution 1272 plus, ordinary adult male is 100, skills, holy spear, 30,705/100,000, firearm shooting LV4, 20,353/100,000, mixed martial arts LV4, 1081/100,000, knowledge LV4, 981/100,000, camouflage LV4, 121/100,000, etiquette LV3, 934/10,000. Skills are divided into 5 levels. More skills can be seen by expanding. Features: demon body, immortality, eternal youth, super speed healing, werewolf body, semi-awakening, super hearing, super vision, super smell, moonlight, can enhance combat effectiveness by 50% at night, can absorb the energy of the moon to enhance its own physique, blessing. Return to youth, blessing, guilt perception, super adrenaline secretion, bullet time, weather forecast. Similar characteristics can be superimposed and fused. Mike, who had nothing to do, studied his system panel by the way. Now that his strength has far exceeded the imagination of ordinary people, his next life plan is to move towards extraordinary events. Got Satan, the ancestor of vampires, the ancestor of werewolves, etc., will all be the targets he wants to explore. On the other side, the white liquid in the medicinal bath has gradually solidified into a wax-like colloid. John, who was lying in it, fell asleep more comfortably. More than half an hour later, with a long inhalation, John broke through the solidified wax block and sat up suddenly. "How do you feel?" Mike asked curiously. "It's amazing. I feel full of strength, as if I have returned to the peak of my physical strength." John got up and moved his body and answered excitedly. As a former killer, John has carried out countless dangerous missions and has more or less left some hidden injuries on his body. The magical healing medicine of the Assassin's League is best at quickly healing internal and external injuries of the human body. If you observe carefully, it is not difficult to find that John's skin condition is much better now. Some old scars on the surface of the body have all fallen off, and the new skin that has grown is full of new vitality. Very good. After seeing the power of the healing medicine with his own eyes, Mike smiled and said to John, "Take 2 pieces of healing medicine back and give them to your wife. Maybe it will help her condition." John's wife Helen, like George's father, also has heart problems. But compared to George, Helen's heart problem is more serious. She has undergone multiple heart bypass surgeries and is now almost exhausted. It just so happens that the healing medicine of the Assassin's League has the ability to heal, while also having some ability to repair the body's deficiencies. So even if this healing medicine cannot completely heal Helen's heart at once, it can at least help her fragile body replenish some vitality. Conservatively estimated, after 2 medicinal baths, Helen can live at least a few more years or even more than 10 years, which is not a big problem. "Thank you." John expressed his sincere thanks for treating his wife. Having personally experienced the power of the healing medicine, he has a full understanding of the preciousness of the healing medicine. It was at this moment that he recognized Mike's identity as the boss from the bottom of his heart. "Okay, let's go out too," Mike said. "The MIBS person in charge of the aftermath should be here soon." While John was taking a medicinal bath, Mike had submitted the task to the headquarters of the Men in Black. In the front yard of the abandoned factory, after so much time, the Cross has completed the drama of father and son recognition with Wesley, a correct version of the book in 1619. But Wesley, who was holding a stack of information, did not feel the excitement after finding his father. "Why? You know everything. Why don't you come in advance to recognize me?" Wesley's face was angry. He realized that the man who abandoned him since childhood had been hiding by his side, silently observing his growth. To be frank, Cross had witnessed everything Wesley experienced while growing up. These included Wesley being bullied in the orphanage, Wesley having no money to go to high school, Wesley being oppressed by his superiors in the company because he had no education, Wesley's girlfriend having an affair with his best friend. As long as you put yourself in Wesley's shoes, you will know how terrible all this is. It is just as the saying goes, it is better to have no father than to have him. Stop for a minute. You can talk about your family affairs slowly when you go back. Mike, who walked back to the yard, looked at the strange father and son and said, "Now, on behalf of the X-Department Special Team, I will give you a chance to re-choose your life. Join us or go to the labor camp." Then, just like when recruiting John, Mike also promised Cross the benefits of joining the team, a new identity certificate, a fixed salary of 50,000 yuan per month, and a special task reward mechanism. As for Wesley, whose potential has not yet been fully stimulated, Mike was only willing to offer him a basic salary of 10,000 yuan per month. Faced with the conditions given by Mike, Cross chose to join the X-Department without thinking. For Cross, money is secondary, but the new identity certificate is really something he can't refuse. On the other hand, Wesley, who has not yet transformed from a loser, is also very tempted by the job with a monthly salary of 10,000 yuan. But before that, he still had a grudge about the destruction of the Assassin's League, especially the killing of Firefox. In his opinion, although the people in the Assassin's League have strange tempers, they are definitely good people who uphold justice. Among them, Firefox, who helped Wesley free from his previous bad life, is in a sense Wesley's great benefactor. "What is your X-Department doing? Why did you sneak attack the Assassin's League for no reason?" Thinking of the dead Firefox, Wesley immediately became angry again. But he had seen the firepower of the X-Department, so he was a little lacking in confidence when he spoke. On the other side, before Mike reacted, Cross stood up first. "Wesley, listen. The Assassin's League not only wanted to use you to kill me before causing the situation of our father and son killing each other. Sloan also distorted the justice of the organization through that loom. In order to strengthen the persuasiveness," Cross said, and took his son to the Assassin's League's data storage room. There, the list of names of each divine revelation of the loom was kept. Sloan, Firefox, Butcher and others were on the list. How could this be? Wesley, who knew the magic of the loom, felt that his three views were shocked when he saw Firefox was also on the list of guilty. To say that this child is good in everything is that he is easy to trust others. Otherwise, he would not have been fooled by Sloan's design before. Of course, this can also be an advantage. Not long after, Wesley, who was persuaded by his own father again, followed him back to the front yard and came to Mike. Cross, who had decided to join the X-Department, brought many internal documents of the Assassin's League when he came out this time. These materials are all related to the Brotherhood of Mutual Aid. As mentioned earlier, the Brotherhood and the Skull and Bones Society have become legends in Migo. Anyone who has anything to do with such a huge group will be in great trouble. How should we deal with these things? Cross asked cautiously. Ordinary people's affairs have nothing to do with us. Michael was in no mood to help Milligan purge the parasites, so he casually suggested, "Of course, if you want, I can help you use your connections and use the documents in your hands to send an anonymous letter to the FBL or some other public *** department." Forget it. I think it's good to leave these documents here. Cross laughed and threw the documents into the corner. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 358, God's Blessing. While several people were talking in the abandoned factory, a row of domineering black off-road vehicles stopped at the factory gate, and then a dozen ordinary MIB employees in black suits got off the cars. In addition to agents, the black-clad organization also has ordinary staff who are responsible for the aftermath. These people usually play the role of scavengers. Thank you for your hard work, Agent M. Let us take care of the things here next. The leading black-clad staff gave full respect to Mike, the special agent, when making the handover. Then, he carefully took the shuttle and the formula for the healing medicine, and after careful confirmation, he handed the shuttle with the divine revelation function to the clergyman beside him. The clergyman was sturdy and had a rough appearance. If he was not wearing traditional missionary clothes, it would be difficult for people to associate him with the profession of priest. After the priest got the shuttle, he also studied it for a while, then opened the Bible in his hand and read the scriptures with a serious expression. Sealing ceremony experience plus 88. Prayer experience plus 66. Exorcism experience plus 35. Don't look unreliable, but he does have real skills. This also made Mike, who was watching the excitement, unexpectedly get a few experience balls. 10 minutes later, the clergyman who finished the sealing ceremony took out a piece of talisman paper from his arms, to be on the safe side, and wrapped the shuttle tightly. Then, he handed it back to the man in black with confidence. On the other side, the black-clad staff who had been prepared carefully put the shuttle into a small box, and then someone escorted it to the black SUV. Hello, Agent M. I heard Mizzo mention you. The clergyman who had finished his work met Mike's curious gaze and introduced himself. I'm Father James from the Church of the Holy Cross. You should have heard of me. Of course, Father James. Mike was polite for a moment and said, Mizzo did mention you to me specifically, and said that I could come to you for help when I needed it. So, for the sake of us being companions, could you provide me with some of the church's holy water, cross or other sacred objects? Although Mike's strength is not bad, when dealing with mysterious events, who would complain that he has too many trump cards? That's probably difficult. Seeing Mike's familiarity, Father James smiled and explained, ordinary crosses only have psychological comfort for ordinary people, unless the cross is tainted with divinity, but there are not many such good things in the church. Don't even think about the holy vessels, I haven't seen them either. As for holy water, I can get you some, if you need it. But please note that the thing has a shelf life. The longer it is, the worse the exorcism effect. Generally, I suggest that it is best used within 3 days. After a long time, the church's exorcism methods are not very good. Those ordinary clergy exorcists may rely more on their own beliefs. Mike, who was a little disappointed that he didn't get anything good, immediately changed the topic and asked, then can you tell me about the mysterious side events recorded in the church? As the saying goes, every inch has its own strengths, and every foot has its own weaknesses. In order to collect faith, the church is best at discovering some miracles from all over the place, and then recording them to prove the existence of God. Therefore, the mysterious side events recorded by the church must be more and more comprehensive than those in the MIB headquarters. What do you want to do by asking about these things? Faced with Mike's excessive request, Father James asked back, I'm just curious. After all, my department does this. Mike casually found an excuse. He has the ability to pick up attributes, and he actually wants to get some wool. This. Father James thought for a while and said, okay. If you are really interested in these things, I will send you a copy of the information through the computer after I go back. Father James's faction in the church belongs to the new faction, and the core concept is to eliminate the disasters brought to mankind by mysterious forces. They believe that God should stay in heaven or only exist in people's beliefs. After all, many miracle events have proved that, even if there is God's blessing, the human heart is complicated, and it will most likely turn into a disaster in the end. Therefore, unlike the conservatives in the church, James does not attach so much importance to miracles and is not so keen on proving the existence of God. Thank you for sharing. Mike, who had reached his destination, waved goodbye to the priest, and before leaving, he asked curiously, by the way, James, have you seen God? Who knows? Father James replied indifferently, anyway, I will definitely see him after I die. In the church's records, God is omnipotent and has no specific appearance. The homeless on the roadside, the salesperson in the supermarket, and even the NI may all be the incarnation of God. After saying goodbye to the priest, Mike brought his team members to the intersection of Queens. John, this is the bonus we agreed on before, Mike said, throwing a small bag full of US dollars to John. John, who received the bag, saw the 2 healing pills in the bag, and a smile appeared on his calm face. This is your advance salary for this month. Then, Mike divided the 2 small stacks of US dollars and threw them to Wesley and his son. Wesley, who got the huge sum of 10,000 US dollars so easily, was as happy as a 200-pound fool. The cross on the other side did not change much. Check out the correct version in the 16:9 book forum. Unlike John, Cross saved a lot of money when he was a killer in the Assassin's League. Don't worry, Cross. Your new identity certificate will be available soon. Mike knew what the other party wanted. When Cross was happy, Mike continued, but there is one thing I want to give you. Before the next mission, I want you to help train John. Mike didn't forget that John was interested in bullet time. No problem, leave it to me. Cross agreed readily. Anyway, he also has to train his son later, so it's not a big problem to train one more person. In the evening, in the luxurious villa, Lina and other girls can see that Mike is in a good mood after returning today. Did anything good happen, Mike? After dinner, Lina couldn't help asking. Of course, I have something good to give you, Mike said, and took out a few soap-sized pastes from his body like magic. This is the magical healing medicine with therapeutic and beauty effects in the Assassin's League. Even if Lina didn't say anything, Mike was actually ready to take this thing out and share it with the girls. Then, in the envious eyes of the little girl Peggy, Mike took the other girls, except Needy, to the bathroom cubicle. More than half an hour later, bursts of exclamations from the girls came from the cubicle. Don't say it, this healing medicine is really magical. While repairing hidden injuries, the beauty effect is even better. Then, accompanied by the surprised cheers of the girls, Mike began the harvest time. At the same time, Needy, who was curled up in the corner of the room on the first floor, had never disliked her super hearing as much as at this moment. Although her human emotional part is gradually disappearing, the playful sounds coming from the 3rd floor still make her feel restless. Especially when she thinks that someone is doing something that is not suitable for children. Chapter 359, Eavesdropping on Women's Hearts. Peggy, you are going to be late for class. At dinner time the next day, Mike was going to use the computer in the little girl's room to facilitate the little girl's study. The only computer in the villa was in her room. But who would have thought that Peggy, who never stayed in bed, had not gotten up today? She was even curled up in the quilt. She must have not rested well last night and looked extremely tired. The moment Mike entered the room, he smelled a faint smell of blood and a strange smell in the air. Realizing something, he immediately withdrew, as if nothing had happened, to avoid embarrassing the little girl. Then, Mike called the little maid Carly and asked her to go to Peggy's room to teach the little girl some physiological knowledge that girls should know. 10 minutes later, Peggy walked out of the room with Carly's accompaniment, her face flushed. As if she didn't dare to face Mike's gaze, she quickly hid in the bathroom. It was indeed a bit embarrassing for Peggy to have her first period and be discovered by Mike. The little girl, who is already 13 years old and almost 14 years old this year, seems to have removed the word small in front of her. Breakfast was over, and when Carly drove Peggy out, Mike went to the computer again. Through his personal mailbox, Mike saw the information sent by Father James. As he thought, the church recorded a lot of mysterious events and was more comprehensive. A large part of them were records of church members exorcising demons for people, and of course a small part was what Mike was interested in. There was a magical remote control that could control life, a magical ability to hear women's voices, and some superpowers that made people unable to lie. The most surprising thing was that Mike even saw Mark's ability to return to youth in the information, which was also recorded in the information. It has to be said that the church's power is even greater than imagined. After screening, Mike finally set his sights on the lucky guy, named Nick Marshall from many lists. This person is the one who has the ability to eavesdrop on women's voices, and now he is working in an advertising design company in Apple City. Judging from the distance, the company is not far from Wall Street. Needy, come out with me. Mike, who is very interested in the ability to read minds, decided to contact the man named Nick. As for Nick Marshall, he still has a handsome face in his middle age, which is very popular with some women. At the same time, he is good at socializing in the company, and he is getting more and more popular. He is about to be promoted from senior designer to design director. On the peak of life, however, just when Nick was proud, the big boss of the company suddenly found a parachuted design director, Darcy McGuire, from outside. As a woman, Darcy not only has a beautiful appearance and a capable style, but also has superior design professional ability to Nick. In this case, in order to regain the face lost by men, Nick suddenly had the idea of putting himself in the role of Darcy. Sunti's Edu's Art of War says, knowing yourself and the enemy can win every battle. So, Nick, a middle-aged man, not only began to imitate Darcy in his style of doing things, but even when he was alone, he began to imitate Darcy's dress. This is difficult and perverted for a grown man. However, hard work pays off. When Nick followed Darcy and tried lipstick, mascara, hair removal cream, facial mask and other female products, his piety seemed to have finally touched God. Next, when he was taking a scented bath like a woman, God gave him an electrical treatment and the ability to eavesdrop on women's thoughts. After that, by eavesdropping on Darcy's creative ideas from time to time, Nick once again gained a foothold in the company and vaguely had the intention of competing with Darcy. In fact, Nick didn't know that when he first had the ability to eavesdrop on women's thoughts and suspected that he had a mental illness and went to consult a psychologist, his various magical performances had already been targeted by the church. It was just because Nick's ability was not very useful to the church, so the church only recorded the matter for observation and did not disturb Nick's normal life. As for the deeper reason, Mike also got the answer from Father James. Lucky people like Nick who suddenly have superpowers do not always have fixed abilities. As time goes by, when these people complete their initial demands, God will immediately take back their superpowers. This period of time is usually not too long, ranging from 10 days to half a month, and no longer than a year. Therefore, for various reasons, the church generally does not pay much attention to such lucky people who have superpowers for a short period of time, as long as their abilities are not particularly outstanding. Mike, who set out from the villa, sat in the Tesla sports car driven by Nidhi, and soon arrived at the advertising creative company, which is only a few blocks away from Wall Street. Judging from the scale, the advertising company where Nick works is indeed quite high-end. I'm Mike at the reception desk of the advertising company. Mike showed his business card of King Investment Company and said, "Please help me make an appointment with your boss." "Okay, Mr. Mike. Please wait, I will help you contact the boss." The beautiful receptionist looked at Mike's famous brand and the expensive sports car on the roadside and was very attentive. A correct version can be found in the 16:9 book bar. It is worth mentioning that King Investment Company, which has invested nearly $500 million, has started its own investment business under the integration of Chris. In order to facilitate the company's year-end tax deduction, Chris has also begun to help Mike buy luxury goods. The formal suit Mike is wearing, the watch on his wrist, and the sports car he drives are actually all purchased with tax credits. Welcome Mr. Mike to my company. I'm David, the boss of this advertising company. Soon, the boss of the advertising company came to the reception desk in person. Obviously, the beautiful receptionist has explained to her boss how precious Mike's identity is. After some politeness, David took Mike, a potential big customer, to his single office. "Excuse me, Mr. Mike, what business do you want to handle this time?" After serving 2 cups of hand-ground coffee, David got to the point. My King Investment Company needs to design a logo. I wonder if you can do it? Mike did not beat around the bush. With such a large advertising company, Boss David must be very well informed. The size of King Investment Company is not small even in Wall Street, so this Boss David must have heard of it. I wonder what your budget is. Sure enough, after hearing the name of King Investment Company, David's attitude became more friendly. Between 200,000 and 2 million. It depends on how much your company can take, Mike said casually. Although David's advertising company is large, it is still a question whether the net profit can reach 2 million per month. Therefore, Mike is definitely a big customer. Please wait a moment. Our company's design level will definitely not disappoint you. After David made a promise, he said to the secretary beside him, go and call Darcy and Nick over and ask them to temporarily put down all their work and say that I have an important client here. It seems that, in order to retain Mike, a big customer, Boss David directly called the company's 2 trump cards. Of course, this is exactly what Mike's goal is, and Nick is exactly what he is looking for. Not long after, 2 elite business dress designers, a man and a woman, walked into the office quickly. The woman standing slightly forward, almost 30 years old, still has charm. If she could be a few years younger, she would definitely be a great beauty. The middle-aged man who was a little behind her had a little ambition in his eyes, unusually thick hair, and looked a little handsome. This man was Mike's target this time, Nick Marshall. Chapter 360 Eavesdropping on Women's Hearts, continued. In the boss's private office, David introduced Mike's identity to Darcy and Nick, and told them Mike's requirements. Wall Street, King Investment Company, logo. Darcy was surprised to learn that this overly handsome young man was actually the big boss behind an investment company with a market value of $500 million. Nick, on the side, was full of envy. King Investment Company is an investment company dedicated to providing financial assistance to individuals or small businesses with specialized technology or unique concepts to complete their initial startups. Mike briefly introduced the nature of his investment company and then looked at the 2 slightly excited designers in front of him and said, that's about it. I wonder what you think of the logo for this kind of company? The formation of a large company's logo is not done overnight. It requires a draft first, and then a specific logo is designed based on this draft. Now, whether the draft can satisfy the customer and win the final order is what Darcy and Nick need to consider most. Of course, this is also a good opportunity for the 2 to prove their value. Ms. Darcy, who understood the seriousness of the matter, immediately fell into deep thought and started a brainstorming session. Nick, on the other hand, seemed a little absent-minded. He pretended to be thinking seriously, but in fact, he kept glancing at Darcy from the corner of his eye. Needless to say, this man should be doing shameless plagiarism now, preparing to get something for nothing. After more than 10 minutes, Darcy had finished thinking. She was confident and said first, Mr. Mike, based on the name of your company, I think your logo may have a crown symbol, representing the king. But before Ms. Darcy finished speaking, Nick, who had eavesdropped on her thoughts, interrupted and said, investment company, illuminate others. The crown can be designed to look like the sun, and a smiley face can be added if necessary. By the way, because your company's model is an angel round, it would be best to add 2 arms representing angels on both sides of the crown. The above is all my ideas. Nick, who completely stole Ms. Darcy's ideas by eavesdropping on women's thoughts, acted like a gentleman after a retort, looked at his female colleague with a smile, and deliberately asked, Director Darcy, do you have anything else to add? No. You said it very well. Everything she wanted to say had been said by others, so Darcy naturally had nothing to say. Even when she looked at Nick, the plagiarist, there was a hint of admiration. Anyone who meets someone who has the same ideas as him several times will feel that the other person is his soulmate. This is roughly what Ms. Darcy is thinking about now. Mr. Mike, what do you think? After listening to his employee's draft, Boss David turned to look at Mike. Whether this cooperation can be achieved depends mainly on the intention of Party A. In other words, the decision-making power is on Mike from beginning to end. Your company's business level is really great. Mike praised and continued. Then the logo design work this time will be handed over to. At this point, Mike paused intentionally, and until Nick's smile was a little stiff, he announced. It will be handed over to Mr. Nick. Blessing. Eavesdropping on women's hearts. Characteristics. Hearing this, Nick's smile bloomed again, and he burst out with characteristic light bulbs in excitement. But before he could be happy for long, Mike's voice came again. I can see that Ms. Darcy's design level is also very high, so this logo design will be handed over to you too. As long as the finished product is satisfactory, don't worry about the remuneration. After making the final decision, Mike also looked at Nick with a complicated expression with a hint of meaning. To be honest, Nick Marshall's previous business level was actually quite good. But because of jealousy, he lost his composure. After he had the ability to eavesdrop on women's thoughts, he only thought about taking shortcuts and plagiarizing Darcy's ideas. This kind of nitpicking made him gradually lose his ability to think and innovate. Although for the time being, he suppressed his opponent Darcy, but in the long run, there will inevitably be problems. Of course, these have little to do with Mike. After getting the ability to eavesdrop on women's thoughts, he is not interested in guiding other people's lives. At this moment, with his new ability, he is trying to find out what's in Niddy's heart. After all, this woman is a time bomb, and the threat to girls like Lena is quite large. Mike can't help but be cautious. I just don't know if it's because Niddy is gradually losing human emotions. Mike didn't hear the other party's voice for a while. On the other hand, Ms. Darcy on the side was ashamed at this time. She robbed Nick of the opportunity to perform alone. This woman looks unkind, but she is kind. Needy, I remember there is a coffee shop downstairs. Go buy me 2 iced Americanos. Mike suddenly ordered. If there is no opportunity, create one. Mike decided to test Needy again. Iced Americanos? Our company has them. I'll send someone to get them for you. Facing a big customer, Boss David took the lead in Needy and showed his enthusiasm. No, I want the one downstairs. Mike emphasized his tone and stared at Needy's reaction. At this time, Boss David understood the atmosphere and no longer dared to speak casually. Darcy and Nick on the side were even more frightened and dared not breathe. However, surprisingly, Needy still had no dissatisfaction in her heart. After confirming the task, she turned around and walked out of the office. As the office door opened, a chaotic voice came to Mike's mind. Sure enough, he is more handsome than a big star. It would be great if I could be his girlfriend. I wonder if he is just an embroidered pillow. The topic became more and more exaggerated. It turns out that, after seeing a super handsome guy, women's thoughts are bolder than men's. Check out the correct version on 16 to 9 book bar. Mike, who heard that many women were planning to use accidents such as falling or spill coffee to chat with him, couldn't help but frown. Being too popular is also a kind of trouble, especially when the other party does not meet your aesthetic standards. Sorry, Mr. Mike. My employee disturbed you. I will deal with it now. Boss David, who is very good at observing people's expressions, smiled at Mike and walked to the door. Because they heard that a super handsome guy came to the company, a lot of female employees gathered outside the boss's office, waiting to see the handsome guy's true face. What Mike heard before was exactly what they were thinking. Don't you have to work anymore? What are you all crowded here for? With Boss David's lion roar, the female employees laughed and dispersed. Okay, Mr. Mike. All the problems have been solved. After returning, Boss David put on a smile again and said, next, let's talk about the specific details of the cooperation. How about it? No problem. Mike, who was no longer worried, said, I'm very satisfied with your plan. Later, I will let Chris give you a deposit. When the finished product comes out, you can go directly to King Investment Company on Wall Street to hand it over to Chris. Mike, who had already made a profit, was in no mood to continue entangled with this design company. Just after the cooperation agreement was basically finalized, Niddy came back with 2 cups of iced Americano. Thank you for your creativity. These 2 cups of coffee are my treat. Mike took the iced Americano from Niddy and turned around to put it in front of Darcy and Nick. Then, he took Niddy, who had just returned, and walked out again. Don't you have anything to say? Mike asked specifically, after leaving the office. Niddy shook her head coldly, still without any dissatisfaction in her heart. However, the female employees in the design company next door who were pretending to work saw Mike coming out and started to yell again. It has reached the level of sexual harassment. In this case, being able to hear women's inner voices all the time is not necessarily a good thing. Let's go. Mike called Needy and walked downstairs quickly. Listening to the unbearable inner voices of the women here, Mike didn't want to stay here any longer. Please go slowly, Mr. Mike. The beautiful receptionist at the front desk politely watched Mike go. Okay. Mike, who rarely heard the other party's inner voice, smiled and said goodbye to the beautiful receptionist. The butt is really good. He must be very good in that aspect. I really envy his girlfriend. Just a few steps, Mike's mind heard the beautiful receptionist's inner voice. There are time periods for being crazy about women. Anything else, Mr. Mike? Seeing Mike stop, the beautiful receptionist smiled sweetly again. But, girl, you have been exposed a long time ago. No. Mike shook his head speechlessly and quickened his pace to leave. If he stayed any longer, he felt that he would have schizophrenia. Chapter 361 Baglia. Mike, wearing a big earplug, passed by the bustling luxury stores on 5th Avenue and finally returned to his big villa. God knows how he endured this journey. In the most expensive neighborhood, the ladies who look extremely glamorous on the surface are filled with lust, power, and vulgar voices like mud. Yes, Mike discovered along the way that physical means cannot isolate the voices of women. The voices seem to be transmitted directly to his brain. Good, bad, greedy, evil, all rushed in at once. Mike, who knew that this would not work, began to think about solutions. If the ability to eavesdrop on women's voices is regarded as a kind of hearing, the ear can only hear the voices you want to hear in a noisy environment. Similarly, the ability to eavesdrop on women's voices should also be able to do this. What's more, Nick, who also has the ability to eavesdrop on women's voices, has not gone crazy yet, which proves that there is a solution to the disadvantages of this ability. So, in the next few days, Mike, who has not been able to control his new ability, chose to stay in the luxury villa. Then, using Lena and other girls, he began to try to tame this new ability. Therefore, Mike also discovered that among the girls who had a close relationship with him, Lena and the little maid Carly were all devoted to him. And Jess, who worked at King Investment Company, and Collins, who studied at Columbia University, both had some characteristics of strong women. While they loved Mike, they also had their own life pursuits. In other words, they had a heart to realize their own life value. Then, there were the 3 girls of the Devil Body group who were preparing to release their second album. The voices of these 3 people can be described in 3 words: silly and sweet. In addition to wanting to spend more time with Mike, their voices were mostly about cosmetics, beautiful clothes, or food. As for life goals, there were no career plans or the like. The 3 girls who had already fulfilled their dream of becoming big stars mainly focused on doing whatever they wanted and not striving for progress. Mike, I find that I can't leave you more and more. After another fierce melee, Queen Bee Regina said sweet words. The feelings of the other girls were similar to hers. While the girls felt that Mike was becoming more and more charming recently, they couldn't explain what exactly was going on. Mike, who had the ability to eavesdrop on women's thoughts, found that this ability was very useful in some special situations after some time of development. For example, when exercising, he could use this ability to be in harmony with the girls. If the other party wanted to go deeper, Mike could give it to them immediately. If the other party wanted to go shallow, Mike could also understand. You are in me, water and water blend together. Anyway, after using his ability, Mike became very considerate when dealing with girls. He completely reached the state of great harmony. You should also pay attention recently. Now is an important moment for the release of your second album. Whether you can successfully transform depends on this time. Mike ignored the girls' love words and gave instructions to the 3 girls of the Devil Body group. It is now the beginning of October, and the second inspirational album of the Devil Body group is being released. Due to the popularity of the first album, the Devil Body group only needs to take steady steps in the second album to establish its position in the new generation of the music scene. It can be said that, as long as the second album continues to be successful, the Devil Body group will have a lot of money to live on in the next 10 years. It was just such an opportunity that the 3 girls of the devil body group didn't take it seriously. They took advantage of the time to be lazy during the promotion and came to have a tryst with Mike. Got it. We'll go back and prepare for the next promotion performance. Regina, who was satisfied physically and mentally, was very easy to talk to now. Moreover, the 3 girls of the devil body group who took the time to run out, it was time for them to go back now. Peggy, what are you doing here? After sending the 3 girls of the devil body group away, Mike saw Peggy sneaking in the living room. I came out to find some water to drink, Peggy explained guiltily, but her eyes were softly staring at the man in front of her. She seemed to be less shy now, after being tortured by the fighting sound countless times. Just when the girl was thinking about it, Mike, who had eavesdropped on her inner voice, took out a pair of earplugs from his body and said, "This is for you. Maybe it will be of some use to you." This pair of earplugs was bought by Mike a few days ago when he was experimenting whether he could eavesdrop on women's thoughts through auditory shielding. Now it can be regarded as a waste utilization. Then, under Peggy's slightly resentful eyes, Mike turned and left the living room. It's not that he doesn't understand romance, it's just that it's not the right time yet. At least, it has to wait until the other party's coming of age ceremony. A correct version in the 1619 book bar. Central Street, number 66 residential building. Fletcher should live here. It was another noon. Mike, who had controlled his ability to eavesdrop on women's hearts, followed the information given by Father James and found the second lucky man. This Fletcher was a famous civil dispute lawyer in Apple City. His eloquent eloquence and ability to reverse black and white made him very successful in the field of civil litigation. However, such a person who was at the peak of his career developed a habit of lying because of the nature of his work. He said it in court, in life, and even in the end, his family could hardly get a single truth from him. Finally, when Fletcher broke his promise to attend his son's 5th birthday party again, his wife could no longer tolerate her husband's lies and his lack of concern for his family. So Audrey chose to divorce her husband Fletcher with her 5-year-old son Maximum. At the same time, Fletcher lost the ability to lie. In the church's records, they called this God's curse, which was specially used to punish those who were accustomed to lying. Beautiful lady, do you know which floor lawyer Fletcher lives on? When Mike came to the high-rise elevator, he met a beautiful woman with a curvy figure. "Hello, I'm Krista Allen. You can call me Allen." The beautiful woman introduced herself generously and then said, "If you are looking for the man named Fletcher, I know. He lives on the 8th floor, on the same floor as me." "Thank you, Ms. Allen. You helped me a lot." Mike, who got Fletcher's specific address, politely thanked the beautiful woman. "It's nothing," the beautiful Allen said, and couldn't help but licked her lips quietly. The tender and polite little handsome boy is really too attractive to a mature woman in her 20s. As for the aloof Neddy, she was completely ignored by this woman. Just then, the elevator to the floor arrived. Allen immediately stepped forward enthusiastically and led Mike in. Then, on the way up the elevator, she stood opposite Mike with her head held high, showing her advantage. It must be said that the valley is very high and the straight is very deep. Next, seeing that Mike looked calm and not embarrassed like a young boy facing a beautiful woman, Allen said with great interest, "Actually, I'm a fitness coach. You have a good figure. If you want to work out again, you can come to me." While speaking, this beautiful woman with a great figure handed out a business card of a fitness center. Then, when handing over the business card, she did not forget to quietly scratch Mike's palm. Mature, sexy, seductive big tits. Who can resist a beautiful woman with so many advantages? Chapter 362, Big Liar, continued. By the way, if you want to find Fletcher, you have to be careful. I heard that he is not a good person. Before the elevator arrived at the 8th floor, the beautiful woman Allen couldn't help but whisper something to Mike. It was also a little inside information. It can be seen that Fletcher was not well received by the people around him, whether he was lying in the past or only telling the truth recently. Thank you for reminding. Facing the subtle behavior of the beautiful woman dribbling and bumping into people when whispering, Mike smiled and gave her a knowing look. It can be said that this woman who practices fitness has a good body, and just looking at her appearance, Allen is almost at the level of girls like Regina. youthful, beautiful, and radiant. It makes people want to have a romantic story with her. Moreover, Mike, who has the ability to eavesdrop on women's thoughts, also knows that the other party has no ill intentions and is simply greedy for his body. Therefore, seeing that the other party is so sincere at such a big age, Mike doesn't mind communicating with the other party when he is free. After saying goodbye to the big beauty Alan, Mike came to the room at the end of the 8th floor and knocked on the door. "Listen, I'm not available to take cases right now. If you want to sue, go find someone else." After a long while, Fletcher's self-destructive response came from the room. Fletcher, who was used to lying, has been unable to lie since he could no longer. Not only has his life been messed up, but even his work at the law firm has been unable to proceed. Facts have proved that if a person only tells the truth, it will be a huge disaster. I'm not a client who comes to entrust a lawsuit, but I'm here to help you solve your problems. In order to get in touch with the other party and get new abilities, Mike is ready to show his special identity in the X department. Are you a pastor? However, things went more smoothly than Mike thought. Before he really showed his identity, Fletcher surprised to open the door and said enthusiastically, "Some strange things have happened to me recently. If you can help me solve this problem, you can ask for anything. You can set the conditions: elocution experience plus 88, law experience plus 66, court experience plus 50. As expected of a great lawyer, the other party contributed a lot of experience light balls to Mike as soon as they met. But there was no characteristic light ball that Mike wanted. "Don't worry, your problem can definitely be solved." Mike comforted Fletcher and continued to induce, "But before that, we need to figure out the reason why you have this problem. First find the problem, and then prescribe the right medicine." It sounds quite plausible. However, the fact is that Mike has confirmed that Fletcher does not have a characteristic light ball. So the problem that causes him to be unable to lie is likely to be caused by the people around him. Mike is now following the clues. Fletcher on the other side has been almost driven crazy by the situation of not being able to lie. You know, for a person who is used to lying, not lying is more uncomfortable than killing him. Therefore, Fletcher, who regarded Mike as a life-saving straw, did not doubt the identity of the visitor and enthusiastically invited Mike and Edie into the house. "The house is a little messy, please don't mind." Fletcher pushed away the sundries on the sofa and made a space for people to sit. It can be seen that the layout of this house is good, and the furniture in the house is also very particular. It is a warm nest suitable for a family to live. But now the floor is full of garbage, sundries, empty bottles, etc. And the owner of the house, Fletcher, is also sloppy, messy hair, stubble, wrinkled shirt. You can't tell that he is a civil litigation lawyer. It all started a week ago. That day was my 5-year-old son's birthday. On the same day, I won a very difficult big lawsuit. In the living room, Fletcher, who had been tortured by not being able to lie for a long time, confessed that lawsuit is also very important to our law firm. So in order to celebrate, I went out alone with my female boss that night and made an appointment for a room. Stop, there's no need to say what happened next. Mike interrupted the other party's speech. Sure enough, not being able to lie is a debuff, and Fletcher, who has this debuff, now dares to say anything. In order to prevent his ears from being contaminated, Mike said bluntly, "I have probably guessed where your problem is." "Really?" Fletcher showed great surprise on his face. Being able to find the problem means that his trouble will finally have a chance to be solved. Yes, the problem should be with your family. If you can find them, your situation will most likely improve. Mike pointed out a clear way for the other party. Let's look at the matter, who hopes that Fletcher will stop lying and become a good person in the true sense. The first one can only be concerned about his family, Audrey and Maximum. After understanding the problem, Fletcher said tangledly, "Audrey and I have divorced, and I don't know where she and my son are now." Since he couldn't lie, Fletcher has been in trouble one after another, and divorce from his wife can only be regarded as one of these events. A perfect version in 1619 book bar. Is that so? Mike thought for a while and said, "Tell me the specific information of your wife, and I will help you check it." In order to get the characteristic that can make people not lie, Mike has also taken a lot of effort. Yes, her name is Audrey, she is 32 years old, and she has a 5-year-old boy. Mike, who got his wife's information from Fletcher, called Mr. Z in the headquarters of the Men in Black. Not long after, Mr. Z sent the information Mike wanted. One good news, and one bad news. Which one do you want to hear first? Mike, who received the information, turned to look at Fletcher. There was a little sympathy in his eyes. Good news. Fletcher, who had been unlucky enough, only wanted to hear good news. The good news is that the address of your wife and son has been found in a luxury hotel in Washington Heights, Manhattan, Mike informed. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go quickly. The sooner we meet them, the sooner we can solve my problem. Fletcher urged impatiently. As a person who loves to lie and has an unclear relationship with his female boss, Fletcher has many shortcomings, but he also truly loves his wife and son. Now he has a chance to meet his family and solve his problems at the same time, which makes him very happy. By the way, what is the bad news? Fletcher couldn't help but ask curiously when he was about to go out. There is a great doctor named Jerry who is pursuing your ex-wife. According to reliable information, he is also planning to invite your ex-wife and son to Boston for a vacation. As a man, Mike did not keep this matter a secret. When these two words are linked together, it feels like nothing good will happen. Jerry? That middleman who wrestles medical equipment. Fletcher said angrily. No, I don't agree. Maximum and Audrey can't go with him. After saying that, the man hurried out of the house, got in the car, and rushed to Manhattan. Outside the luxury hotel, Fletcher called out his ex-wife and son. I don't agree with Jerry being Maximum's father, and you better not contact that medical middleman. Fletcher, who seemed to be holding back a lot of energy in his heart, started to vent when he saw his ex-wife. Think about it, any man facing this kind of thing will probably only get angrier and angrier the more he thinks about it. We are divorced, you have no right to interfere. Also, I haven't asked you yet, what's going on between you and your female boss? Audrey was obviously irritated by her ex-husband's behavior and started to bring up the past. Neither of them was willing to give in, and the current situation was a bit like tit for tat. Chapter 363 New Ability. Your name is Maximum, right? What do you think of the relationship between your parents? When the Fletchers confronted each other and talked about the past, Mike approached their son. 5-year-old Maximum is very cute, but he feels like a little adult. He was holding a toy airplane in his hand, and he didn't cry or make a fuss, looking unusually mature and stable. Although Fletcher, Dad, loves to lie, I still hope he can reconcile with Mom. I don't like Jerry. Maximum answered. This 5-year-old child obviously knows a lot, and Mike has determined that the root of Fletcher's problems should be on his son's side. The problem now is how to make this little guy explode the characteristic light ball. Do you want your parents to reconcile? Mike asked in a targeted manner. Do you have a way? Sure enough, after hearing Mike's question, Maximum's emotions fluctuated. Of course, just watch. Mike stepped forward confidently. He has the ability to eavesdrop on women's thoughts, and he has discovered that Audrey actually still has feelings for Fletcher. A large part of the reason why she divorced Fletcher was because he was irresponsible to his family and son. As long as Fletcher was willing to be a good father and a good husband, Audrey was actually willing to forgive him. As for Fletcher's feelings for his wife and son, they were all shown along the way. With this foundation, the couple only needed an opportunity to reconcile. This is exactly what Mike wants to do. Fletcher, do you still love your wife? Mike asked directly in the expectant eyes of the little guy. Fletcher is now equivalent to being cursed by God, so what he said next must be the truth. Of course, I still love her, and I'm even willing to give everything for her. Fletcher spoke his true feelings uncontrollably, and then complained, but how did she treat me? It wasn't long after we divorced that she took her 5-year-old son and found another man. Although Fletcher's later words were not pleasant to hear, his true feelings still eased the atmosphere. After Audrey felt her husband's intentions, she also explained, there is nothing between me and Jerry. He heard that I was divorced and kept pestering me. At this moment, things seemed clear. Audrey was not as bad as Fletcher thought, and there was still a chance to save all the problems. I can prove that my mother doesn't like Jerry, and neither do I. Maximum, who had been paying attention to his parents' situation, found an opportunity to interrupt. At the same time, he did not forget to hug Fletcher's arm, blinking his big eyes, and using cute tactics, trying to make his father accept him again. After all, he was only a 5-year-old child. How mature could he be? Blessing. Power of truth. Characteristic. At this time, Mike finally got the characteristic light bulb from Maximum. As he guessed, the person who did bad things with good intentions was Fletcher's son Maximum. The original intention of this little guy should be to make his father change his bad habit of lying so that he could care more sincerely about his family. But the situation seemed to be different from what the little guy thought. Fletcher, who could only tell the truth, did not make the family happier. Instead, it was a bit counterproductive. Ms. Audrey, do you still love your husband? Mike, who had integrated new abilities, suddenly turned his target to Audrey. Having completed his purpose, he didn't mind helping the Fletcher family before leaving. Of course I love him. Under the power of truth, Audrey was forced to speak the truth. This wonderful feeling made the woman a little panic. Soon, she changed the subject and said, but I know that he doesn't deserve this love. He even preferred to run away, to hang out with other women on his son's 5th birthday, rather than go home to celebrate his son's birthday. If you don't consider his personal situation, Fletcher's role as a father and husband is indeed unqualified. Then Fletcher, if you can reconcile with your wife and son, are you willing to spend more time to treat them well in the future? Mike asked again. I'm willing. Fletcher, who felt that he didn't know how to start, confessed according to his feelings. If Audrey and Maximum are willing to give me another chance, I will definitely be a good husband and a good father. I will use all my love to compensate them. After a true confession, Fletcher gradually won back the favor of his ex-wife. The two people who already had a foundation of affection seemed to have eliminated the barriers unconsciously. At this moment, Fletcher was happy. He even felt that, if he could reconcile with his family, it would not be a big deal, even if he could not lie anymore. Fletcher, if you want to completely solve the trouble on you, remember to give your son a 5th birthday party. When you go back seeing the Fletcher family gradually getting harmonious, Mike chose to retire. A perfect version of the book in 1619. As for the curse on Fletcher, as long as he maintains the persona of a good father and a good husband, his problems will naturally be solved. After all, the original intention of little Maximum was to want his father to care more about his family. Is that your friend? Audrey asked curiously after Mike and Needy left. To be honest, Mike gave her a very mysterious feeling before. No, I don't know them. Fletcher shook his head. Only then did Fletcher realize that the other party had helped him so much, but he didn't even know the other party's name. Forget it. If you have a chance to see them again in the future, it won't be too late to thank them. Audrey didn't mention it anymore, and then continued, now let's talk about you. If you want me and my son to accept you, you not only need to make up for Maximum's birthday party, but also take him to the amusement park. This is what you promised him a long time ago. After assuming the relationship, Audrey seemed to have the intention of bringing up the past again. However, her words this time were very useful to Fletcher. No problem, I will meet all your requests. This also includes the promises I made to you before. Fletcher smiled and made another promise. Of course, he has not yet been able to lift the curse, so this time his promise is completely sincere. Needy, tell me honestly, do you still want to avenge Jennifer? On the other side, on the way back to the big villa, Mike suddenly asked the woman next to him. Blessing. Power of truth can force the other party to speak the truth in their heart. This ability is simple and direct. Mike had tried it before, and this ability is very useful, and it is easier to control than the ability of eavesdropping on women's thoughts. I don't know. Needy was tangled up and said, maybe I should avenge Jennifer, but my intuition tells me that I can't do that. As human emotions gradually disappeared, women spoke less and less. It was very rare for her to be able to say such a long sentence this time. It's best if you can figure it out. Mike felt much better after probably understanding the other party's true thoughts. Of course, whether the other party is worthy of full trust depends on the woman's future performance. Chapter 364 Mark's Trouble. It was a brand new day. Mike, who changed back into his school uniform, came to Columbia University with Peggy. It was only a month after the start of the school year, but Mike had already skipped nearly 2 weeks of classes. Although he had the MIB organization's endorsement, skipping classes too often was not good. Since the MIB headquarters had no new tasks to issue, Mike thought it would be good to come back and experience college life. It is worth mentioning that Needy was also coming to Columbia University with him this time. Through the relationship of the MIB headquarters, she was admitted to Columbia University's Department of Social Sciences. Her major was social research. This major, which sounded like it required communication with people, didn't seem to fit Needy at all. However, this was not a problem Mike needed to worry about. At this time, he hadn't been to school for nearly 2 weeks, and he was looking at his locker full of love letters and small gifts and feeling worried. Leave it to me. Peggy, who had foresight, seemed to have anticipated this situation and had prepared a large school bag in advance. Soon, she naturally handed the larger bag to Needy, who was standing beside her, and filled with 2 bags, one large and one small, full of love letters and small gifts. As mentioned earlier, Needy was cold only when she looked at Mike in the big villa and was friendly to other girls. In return, although Peggy and other girls were wary of Needy, they did not deliberately isolate her out of sympathy for her experience. The final result was that Needy and Peggy and other girls actually had a good relationship. Look, facing the bag that Peggy handed over, Needy naturally helped to carry it in her hands. Boy, I heard that you want to stand up for that loser Alex. In front of the storage cabinet at the entrance of the school, a tall bad student blocked Mark's way and said viciously, I even heard that you said bad things about me behind my back. Mark Friedman, Mike O'Donnell, is the lucky one who has the ability to return to youth. The Alex mentioned by the bad student happened to be Mark's son who didn't live up to expectations. Now, Alex happened to stand with Mark. He was used to being bullied, but now he became timid when facing the bullying of the bad student. Mark, who saw his son's reaction, unconsciously put himself into the role of a father. He stepped forward to protect Alex, stared at the bad student and said, first of all, Alex is not a waste, he studies very well. Secondly, I didn't say anything bad about you. What I said was the truth, wasn't it? Only people with low self-esteem would want to bully the weak to show their presence. When they get older, they will know how ridiculous everything they did before was. Mark, who has the soul of a middle-aged man in his body, talked about the truth one after another. His mouth-to-mouth attack power is almost full. Using this ability to deal with simple-minded bad students is simply a dimensionality reduction attack. For example, now, the students who gathered at the entrance of the school to watch the excitement applauded Mark's passionate speech. But before Mark could feel proud for long, the angry bad student on the opposite side took action and pushed him against the cabinet door. Alex is a waste. The fact that you can be friends with him proves that you are also a waste. The bad student showed a fierce expression. Facts have proved that the reason why bad students become bullies is because they are unreasonable. Such people are often strong in limbs and simple in mind. They only care about their own preferences and never think about it. Of course, if this goes on, people like them will suffer one day. But in a relatively simple campus, such people are very popular. Force cannot solve everything. Your current behavior has already involved personal attacks. If you continue to do it, I will tell the teacher about your behavior. Mark, who was pushed and staggered, was still thinking about reasoning with the other party at this time. He did not notice that Alex, who was looking at him from the side, had dimmed his eyes. Tell the teacher? The school bully on the other side, as if he had heard a joke, exaggeratedly made a gesture of picking his ears, and sarcastically said, you shouldn't come to school now, but should go to your mother to eat asterisk asterisk. The standard American joke also won a burst of laughter for the bad student. Then again, Mark, who has the soul of a middle-aged man, may be very good at reasoning, but he lacks the bloodiness that young people should have due to his mature personality. Now the situation is already obvious, and swinging fists is the best choice for Mark. But he is used to the way adults deal with things, so he obviously can't do it. At the same time, Mike, who was standing in front of his locker, also saw the scene of Mark being bullied not far away. The other party should have listened to Mike's previous advice and became friends with the bullied Alex. However, the other party's current situation seems a bit bad. That person is called Mickey Paris, a bench player on the school football team, with a very bad personality. Peggy saw Mike and was interested in what was happening on the side, so she explained the identity of the bully to him. There are all kinds of people in this school. Mike couldn't help but sigh after hearing the whole story. Before coming to college, Mike still had a little filter for Columbia University as a famous school. But after arriving at the school, he found that this famous school was not as good as he thought. There is no absolute fairness in the world. Read the correct version in 1619 book bar. And Mark, who was being bullied over there, also had some connection with Mike, so he didn't plan to stand idly by. After a while, Mike took Peggy and Edie to the scene of the incident. At the same time, many female students who were secretly paying attention to Mike at the entrance of the school also became excited. For them, a super handsome and mysterious male classmate like Mike is very attractive. Mark, you seem to be in trouble. Following the passage made by the female students, Mike easily entered the inner circle. Is it you? Mark, who was being bullied, recognized Mike. Then, he said stubbornly, it's just a small problem. I can solve it quickly. Mark didn't forget that it was Mike's good looks that turned his well-behaved and sensible daughter into a flower maniac. Although this matter had little to do with Mike subjectively, as an old father whose little white cabbage was pushed, Mark still didn't want his embarrassed side to be seen by the other party. This was probably the last stubbornness of an old father. Are you friends with them too? The bad student Mickey suddenly turned his spearhead and stared fiercely at the handsome Mike. Bullying trash is not as fulfilling as bullying handsome guys. You know, there are many beautiful women in the team gathered around to watch the fun. A large part of them are coming for Mike. Mickey obviously saw this. Therefore, out of some perverted psychology, he wanted to bully Mike, who was more popular. I don't know Alex, but I can barely be considered to know this classmate Mark. Unlike the bully thought, Mike was not scared by his bluffing momentum. On the contrary, his calm demeanor made the girls around him brighten up their eyes. Damn pretty boy, I don't think you are a good person. The bad student Mickey suddenly launched a personal attack on Mike. The train of thought of this kind of guy is really hard to understand at times. Maybe only Mickey himself knows that he bullied Alex at the beginning because of his outstanding appearance. And the reason for bullying Mark just now is almost the same. As a result, now a more handsome man has appeared, and Mickey certainly can't tolerate it. If Mike knew this ridiculous reason, he might choose to be gentler on the other party when he takes action later. After all, it is wrong to bully fools. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 365 Social Death. Whether you are friends with them or not, we are enemies the moment you stand up. Mickey didn't care about Mike's explanation. He raised his arms and jumped a few times, posing a boxing stance, and excitedly challenged, I'll give you a chance. Come on. Defeating the pretty boy shows his strength and wins the favor of the schoolgirls. This is probably what the simple-minded Mickey wants to do most now. However, the script did not go as he wrote. Mike was not angry at his words, but smiled as if he was looking at a clown and asked, Mickey, right? Tell me, why do you bully Alex? At the same time, Mike used the power of truth that he had just obtained. No reason? Mickey didn't realize the seriousness of the problem and said defiantly, why can't I be the main player of the team when I'm so strong and those girls don't like me? And Alex, this waste, not only studies well, but there are girls who like him. Alex has a weak temperament and looks like a punching bag, but he has a delicate face. Although this image is not the first choice of girls, he is still quite popular in some groups of girls. It is this point that irritated Mickey, who was not satisfied with his life. However, Mickey's reason for bullying his classmates was really not up to paragraph. At this time, facing the boos of the girls around him, his expression was no longer as natural as before. So that's how it is. Mike made a look of sudden enlightenment, still with a smile on his face, and continued, it seems that you have a lot of secrets in your heart. While there are so many people here, can you share them with us? Power of truth was activated again. I'm 9. Mickey found that he was about to speak the truth uncontrollably and quickly covered his mouth with his hand. Looking at Mike again, there was only horror. 9 what? Say it out and let everyone hear it. Mike had no sympathy for the bully, so he chose to add fuel to the fire. I snatched a little girl's lollipop when I was 9, and I beat up an old woman when I was 13. Covering his mouth was useless for Mickey. He continued with a distorted face. I participated in a $0 purchase when I was 15. In the end, Mickey, who was obviously desperate, formed a 5-meter vacuum zone around him. It can be predicted that after this incident, he should become a legend on campus. I'm afraid he will have no time to bully his classmates in the future. And Mark, who has the soul of a middle-aged man in his body, may be the only one among the many onlookers at the scene who knows how much psychological trauma this incident will cause to Mickey. However, a bad student like Mickey who bullied his son is not worthy of Mark's sympathy. On the contrary, looking at the other party's miserable appearance, Mark felt very happy for no reason. Turning his head again, Mark found that the instigator of all this had already left the scene with 2 girls. Wait, Mike leaving Alex, who was still watching the excitement. Mark caught up with Mike and his 3 companions at the corner of the campus. Why? Mike smiled and joked, are you here to thank me? What Mike didn't expect was that his gentle expression looked like a devil to Mark. After all, Mike had the same expression when he tricked Mickey before. Mark was cautious and silent for a while, and said, thank you this time. I owe you a favor. If you need any help in the future, just ask. Speaking of which, Mark actually had a good impression of Mike. Of course, the premise is that it doesn't involve his daughter Maggie. Maggie, who is a serious appearance seeker, has now become obsessed with the super handsome Mike. As far as Mark knows, his daughter Maggie is now thinking about how to give herself to Mike for free. She may even have thought of the name of their child. Mike, on his side, didn't know Mark's complicated psychology. In the face of thanks, he casually said, I received your thanks. If nothing else, see you next time. To be honest, if the bullied party was not someone he knew, Mike would most likely not interfere in other people's business. Therefore, Mark really needs to thank him. Wait, I have one more thing to ask of you. Before Mike left, Mark said awkwardly, if Maggie comes to see you, please be nice to her. After worrying about the weak-willed Alex, Mark was worried about his daughter Maggie. It can be said that for the sake of his 2 children, Mark, the old father, was also worried. Now, he has figured out his daughter's problem. Instead of worrying about her flower-crazy problem, it is better to let her try. Besides, if there is really such an excellent son-in-law as Mike, it would actually feel good. Of course, as a mature adult, Mark also knows in his heart that Mike may not be able to like his daughter. But he still sincerely hopes that his daughter can be treated gently in the process of pursuing her own happiness in life. Maggie? Mike thought of the beautiful girl who liked to peek at him. A correct version in 1619 book bar. Then, he looked at Mark with a strange expression and said, I'll try my best. Others may not know, but Mike, who has many magical powers, has long known Mark's true identity. This naturally includes the fact that Maggie is the other party's child. Next, Mike began his day on campus. On this day, Micah's self-explosion in the morning quickly spread throughout Columbia University. Then, this unlucky child who couldn't bear the blow found an excuse and asked for a month of sick leave from the school. He wanted to use time to heal everything. However, he didn't understand that some things would only become more and more exaggerated. For example, the coach of the university football team immediately unilaterally expelled the other party from the school football team after hearing about Micah's outrageous incident. It can be imagined that when Mickey comes to school again, the situation will only be worse than it is now. Mike, who had completed a day's study, met the beautifully dressed Caroline in the parking lot again when he was about to take a car back to the villa. Compared with Caroline, who came to encounter on purpose several times before, her expression today was much more solemn. Mike, we need to talk. The young lady was a little aggressive when she came up. There are no outsiders here, just say whatever you want to say. Mike, who thought he was not that familiar with the other party, did not give Caroline a very good look. Caroline glanced at Peggy and Needy beside Mike, and there seemed to be a bit of resentment in her anger. Finally, she said, as the only daughter of the Channing family, I'm so beautiful. Why did you choose those bitches instead of me? Looking at the girl's strange behavior, Mike frowned, and then decisively activated the ability of eavesdropping on women's hearts. It turned out that the reason why Caroline, the eldest lady, lost her composure was that Lisa, the campus belle of Columbia University, had been promoting herself as Mike's girlfriend in the school these days. This naturally made Caroline, who regarded Mike as a target of conquest, feel very unhappy. But now there is someone who is even more unhappy than her. Obviously, Mike had reminded Lisa before that the two of them were just simply getting what they needed. Who knew that this woman was not only scheming, but also quite deep, and wanted to use some small tricks to make herself regular. However, Lisa didn't know that her behavior was nothing but self-righteousness in Mike's eyes. Chapter 366 New Mission. Hi, Mike. I heard from them that you came to school today. Just as Caroline was waiting for Mike's answer, Lisa, a school beauty dressed in a fresh style with a decent smile on her face, also came to the parking lot. As soon as the girl arrived, she walked towards Mike in a familiar manner. When she passed by the eldest daughter of the Channing family, she did not forget to give her a provocative look. Wow, is this the new car you bought? It looks good. Can I sit in it and try it? At the same time, Lisa also noticed the luxury car behind Mike. With his super high appearance, and now with his good financial resources, Mike is definitely the best male of the same age that Lisa has met so far. Of course, his super high appearance occupies a major position. After all, humans are visual animals. This is why Lisa is eager to spread the news, and wants to quickly confirm her relationship with Mike. Sorry, there is no place for you in this car. Mike avoided the girl's action of hugging his arm and shook his head slightly. With the ability of eavesdropping on women's hearts, he heard a lot of bad things in the girl's heart: comparison, vanity, and feminine intrigue, etc. The only thing she didn't have was probably sincerity. Just at this moment, Needy, who had long been annoyed by Lisa's bitchy nature, stepped forward expressionlessly and stood in front of Mike, separating the girl who came up to harass him. The situation suddenly became clear, except for Caroline, who was watching the show next to her. Lisa instantly became an outsider among the people at the scene. She wanted to struggle a little more, but then she made a wronged expression and looked at Mike pitifully. In order to use this gesture to arouse men's desire to protect her, it must be said that Lisa must have a lot of things to become the campus belle of Columbia University not long after the start of the new school year. It's just a pity that the girl met Mike this time, and he was a Mike who had the ability to eavesdrop on women's hearts. All her little thoughts were exposed in Mike's eyes. Well, when there is a space for your car, please let me know at any time. Faced with Mike's cold attitude, Lisa still didn't plan to give up immediately this rare high quality stock of his. Before leaving, she used words that the two of them could understand to seduce. I'm very experienced in driving. Do you have anything else to say? After watching Lisa leave, Mike turned to look at the eldest daughter of the Channing family. No. Caroline, who had seen a wonderful performance, suddenly showed a sweet smile on her face and invited her temporarily. I want to hold a private party this weekend. I wonder if you are free. Caroline, who grew up in an ivory tower, was very well protected by her father. She was not worldly wise and almost showed her thoughts on her face. Mike had no doubt that the private party the girl mentioned would probably only have 2 people in the end. The truth was that this was another girl who was greedy for his body. But compared to Lisa, Caroline's mind was a little simpler, and she didn't have any bad intentions. It depends on the situation. Mike responded. If I'm free that day, I'll let you know in advance. Mike, who has the ability to eavesdrop on women's hearts, doesn't have to worry about being cheated by women. Don't miss a good girl. Okay, that's settled. Caroline was still very happy in the face of the man's slightly perfunctory attitude. After all, happiness is the result of contrast. After staying in school for another 2 days, during the lunch break on Thursday, Mike received a mission call from the Men in Black headquarters. According to Mr. Z, a dangerous green-faced thief has recently appeared near Broadway. This man has a strange transformation ability and is not afraid of knives and guns, and his behavior pattern is extremely strange. The first time this weirdo appeared, he beat up the gangsters in the Broadway district, looking like a superhero. Nothing happened so far. But then, this man turned around and used his superpowers to rob all the money in the bank on Broadway, confirming his identity as a thief. The main point is a contrast. According to the initial inference from the FBL, the identity of the green-faced thief is probably Stanley, a clerk at the Broadway bank. After Mr. Z introduced the basic situation of the thief, he entered the topic. Based on this person's ability to transform, the Men in Black headquarters speculated that the other party may have obtained the mask of the god of mischief Loki. If the situation is true, your mission this time is to retrieve the mask. According to existing literature, the evil god Loki is also called the god of mischief. His best ability is to deceive people and amplify the desires in the hearts of humans, including the desire to kill. So far, there has been no report of the green-faced thief injuring anyone, but if the other party's ability is really provided by the Loki mask, sooner or later, he will become a devil who only knows how to kill. Because of this mask, this is also what the Men in Black headquarters is most worried about. Listen, Agent M, the Loki mask also has the ability to bewitch people. It will make the person who gets it wear the mask on his face without knowing it. Because it involves the evil god, Mr. Z did not forget to remind him before the call ended, so please be careful on this mission. If necessary, you can seek help from the headquarters or Father James in the church. The correct version in the 16-9 book forum. Here we have to mention the difference between the God system and the Zeus system. The church believes that God, as the supreme god, is real, so he needs to be worshipped and prayed. The Zeus system, including the evil god Loki, are all fictional mythological figures in legends, so they do not need to be worshipped. In this case, it is also a professional match for clergy to deal with the troubles caused by mythological figures. Thank you for your concern. I will be careful. Mike accepted the other party's kindness. At the same time, through Mr. Z's description, Mike probably guessed what the green-faced thief was about. It must be said that, although Stanley is a small person with an unhappy life, his heart is more noble than many people. Suddenly possessing superpowers and being deceived by the Loki mask, the worst thing he did was just to take some US dollars. If nothing unexpected happened, Stanley's motivation for robbing the bank was that another group of people were robbing the bank at the time. Stanley was also temporarily protecting the US dollars for the bank in disguise. After initially confirming that Stanley was not a big threat, Mike took advantage of the afternoon school break to send Peggy and Collins back to the villa, and then took Needy to the Broadway block next door. When Mike and the others arrived at Stanley's rented house, a bunch of FBL agents' cars were parked in front of the residential building. Obviously, the robbery of Broadway Bank has attracted great attention from the relevant departments. Who is in charge here? To avoid trouble, Mike directly showed his FBL certificate. Hello, Captain. A middle-aged man with a detective chief badge on his clothes came forward and said, "I'm Lieutenant Peter Calloway, and I will lead the team this time." The FBL certificate that the Men in Black issued to Mike did not have a specific position, which was probably similar to a special certificate for meeting an official one level higher. It is valid for those below the level of *** general. Therefore, even though Mike looks young, in the eyes of Detective Peter, he is definitely a big shot. "Hello, Detective Chief. What mission are you carrying out this time?" Mike asked. On the other side, Peter also explained the situation to Mike in detail. It turned out that through the bank surveillance, on the day the bank was robbed, there was a fierce robbery battle between Green-Faced Thief and another group of robbers. Green-Faced Thief was on the attacked side. Of course, none of this is important. The important thing is that in the fierce battle, Green-Faced Thief's tie was broken in half and left at the crime scene. FBL was following this clue and found Stanley. Chapter 367 The Mask. Stanley accidentally picked up Loki's prank mask when he went down to the river to save someone because he misunderstood someone who fell into the water. However, he didn't know that this magical mask would come alive at night. At this time, he slept in and thought that last night's lesson to the gangster and robbing the bank were just a dream. As mentioned earlier, this mask has the power to bewitch people. It made Stanley, a usually timid and good-natured man, release his suppressed personality after wearing it and become arrogant incomparable. What a good dream. Stanley, who had just woken up, thought of the happy scene in last night's dream and smiled unconsciously on his face. Then he curiously rubbed the strange mask next to the pillow that he brought back as a souvenir. Once a person's nerves are suppressed for too long and cannot be released, they will continue to accumulate negative emotions. If this continues, the tense nerves will have problems sooner or later. For Stanley, this mask is like helping him to release the negative emotions accumulated in real life in his dream. However, when Stanley, who was in a good mood, opened the closet to change clothes, a lot of US dollars scattered out of the closet. The cash of nearly a small target made Stanley's brain short-circuited. Then he realized that everything last night did not seem to be a dream. Dun dun, dun. Just at this time, there was a knock on the door. Stanley, who was guilty of being a thief, quickly put the US dollars scattered on the ground into the closet, and then carefully closed the door. Still feeling unsafe, he went to hide the magical mask under the pillow. After doing all this, he pretended to be calm and went behind the door and asked, "Who is it?" "FBL detective, we suspect you are related to a bank robbery. Please open the door for inspection now." The voice of Chief Detective Peter came from outside the door. I don't know what robbery it is." Stanley was so scared that his legs went weak when he heard the detective coming to the door. Knowing that he couldn't get away with it, he opened the door reluctantly. "Excuse me, do you recognize this half tie?" Chief Inspector Peter asked in a business-like manner. The half of the colorful tie evidence in his hand was exactly the accessory tie on the zoot suit that was popular in the 1940s. The zoot suit specifically refers to high-waisted pants with bright colors, narrow trouser legs, large lapels, thick padding, and a long coat with wide shoulders. People who have such clothes suitable for performing on stage are more or less the type of people who are sultry in their hearts. Looking at the familiar half-tie in the chief inspector's hand, Stanley's palms were sweaty with nervousness. Suddenly, he had an idea and said exaggeratedly, "Oh, great. Have you found the person who stole my clothes? I just lost a suit last night." But Stanley may not realize that when he lies, his eyes will unconsciously glance to the right, and his body will keep making small movements. Then you admit that this half of the tie is yours. The experienced Chief Inspector Peter was not fooled by Stanley. He said with a serious expression, "Sorry, in order to clear you of suspicion, we need to search your room. Loki's prank mask has powerful magic at night, but this ability is suppressed to the minimum during the day. Therefore, it cannot help Stanley solve the current dilemma at this time." A group of detectives, led by Peter, forced their way into Stanley's small room. It was a typical single man's room with a small space and sundries scattered everywhere. Mike, who was following behind, had been paying attention to Stanley since the door was opened. As a result, no special light group burst out from the other party for so long. In this case, it can be concluded that the one with magic should be the mask, not someone who got the mask. Then, Mike, who entered the room with the detectives, followed his intuition and went to the single bed next to the windowsill. On the other side, the detectives led by Peter walked to the most conspicuous closet in the room. Seeing that the secret was about to be revealed, Stanley looked around nervously and was on the verge of collapse. Wow! Mike, who felt something strange on his body, instantly lifted up the space cotton pillow. But to his disappointment, there was nothing on the pillow. Obviously, the mask with the ability to play pranks did not want to be found now. Stanley, who had been paying attention to this side, was also startled by Mike's action of lifting the pillow at the same time. When he saw that there was nothing under the pillow, he had a look of surviving a disaster on his face. However, things were not over yet. On the other side, Detective Peter, who went to the closet, had already grabbed the closet door with both hands and was ready to open the closet. Immediately, Stanley, who had not had time to rejoice that he had escaped a disaster, had cold sweat on his forehead again. Just at this time, an old lady in a fat home dress came to the door. "Stanley, I told you a long time ago not to bring strangers to my house." The old lady, with a ridiculous big nose and wrinkles on her face, was full of sarcasm in her tone and demeanor. Her voice also made Chief Inspector Peter stop what he was doing. "Sorry, Mrs. Peeman," a perfect version in the 16:9 book forum. Stanley, who was once again thankful to have escaped a disaster, had never thought that the landlady was so lovely. He forced a flattering smile on his face and explained to the old lady, "They are from the FBL. They came here to investigate a bank robbery case. They didn't mean to cause trouble. I don't care about FBL or bank." Mrs. Peeman, who was short but very imposing, found Chief Inspector Peter, who looked like a leader, and asked, "Don't think I don't understand the law. You broke into my house without reason. Do you have a search warrant?" Being stared at by the old lady, Chief Inspector Peter replied helplessly, "Because the bank robbery was an emergency, the search warrant is still being processed. If you want to see it, I will ask someone to send it to you tomorrow." Broadway Street in the Big Apple is definitely a wealthy area. The bank robbery here has a very serious impact. Therefore, in order to appease people, Chief Detective Peter was ordered to solve the case within 3 days. Time is short and the task is heavy. In this case, Chief Detective Peter wanted to quickly solve the bank robbery case, and it was too late to follow the normal process. "Without a search warrant, please leave my house." Mrs. Peeman took out her hand that had been hidden behind her back, showed a long-barreled shotgun, and shouted with a stern expression, "Don't think I'm old and confused. I lived in Florida when I was young." This is a naked threat at the same time. It can be regarded as one thing overcoming another. It should be known that in the United States, if someone breaks into a private house without reason, the owner has the right of legitimate defense. Although Mrs. Peeman's attitude was not good, her request was very reasonable to Chief Detective Peter. Not long after, Chief Detective Peter, who was driven out of the house by the old lady, had only helplessness on his face. "Captain, we are going to visit the underground block of Broadway next. Do you want to come with us?" The chief detective, who had sorted out his mood, was ready to investigate the case from a different angle. According to the bank surveillance, on the day the bank was robbed, there was another group of people besides the green-faced thief. According to the internal information of the police, the identities of those people were members of the Broadway Underground gang. If they can be arrested, the case of the Broadway bank robbery can be explained. I won't bother you anymore. Good luck. Mike has determined that Stanley is the mask in his impression, so he will not go anywhere else to do useless work. After saying goodbye to the FBL agent, Mike called the John Wick trio on the way back to his luxury villa. He asked them to help keep an eye on Stanley in the next few days. Once the green-faced thief takes action, notify him immediately. Chapter 368 The Mask, continued. Boss, Stanley received an invitation letter and seems to be ready to go out. On Saturday noon, Mike, who was about to go to Miss Caroline's house for an appointment, received a call from John. So far, John and his two friends have been monitoring Stanley's residence for a day and a night. Stanley, as a bank clerk, has not left his home for nearly a day because of the robbery of Broadway Bank. You keep watching the target, I'll be there soon. Mike changed his schedule temporarily after hearing the report. It was just because the power of Loki's mask was too tempting. And the neighborhood where Stanley lived was not far from Mike's luxury villa. 10 minutes later, Mike met John and his two friends in the Broadway neighborhood in the Tesla sports car driven by Needy. What's going on? Mike found that there was no movement in the apartment building where Stanley lived. We don't know the specific situation. We only know that at noon, a woman sent him an invitation letter. John shook his head and replied, Tina Carlisle, a super sexy beauty, is now restricted by the Broadway Underground gang. From another perspective, she is also a member of the gang. This woman once robbed the Broadway bank for the gang leader Dorian. She went to the bank in advance to check the location. The person who received her was Stanley, the bank clerk, who looked serious on the surface, but was sultry on the inside, was immediately fascinated by the beautiful woman in front of him. With Stanley's cover, the gang's plan to rob the bank went very smoothly. However, when Dorian was robbing the bank, a green-faced weirdo unexpectedly showed up halfway to intercept him. Now, not only FBL is investigating the green-faced thief, but even the underground gang Dorian belongs to is also looking for the interceptor. Stanley, who is related to this matter, naturally became one of Dorian's suspected targets. The invitation letter he received this time was a test by the gang. Stanley, who was still unaware of it, was excited about receiving Tina's invitation. Coco Bongo Bar. It is an upscale private nightclub, which is also the address on the invitation letter. Stanley, who was not wearing a mask, was a little introverted and was struggling with whether he should go to a place like a nightclub. In the end, the temptation of beauty overcame everything. If you really have magic power, please help me. Once it was evening, and Stanley picked up the mask that seemed to be problematic. As the mask slowly approached his face, after a whirlwind, Stanley turned into a green-headed weirdo. At this time, he had 2 rows of white teeth and looked extremely confident. Another whirlwind, Stanley turned his pajamas into an exaggerated and bright zoot suit. Kang Mang. That sit in front of the mirror, Stanley used a comb to comb his extremely smooth green head. Obviously, he was very satisfied with his new image. Then he put on a bright yellow hat and appeared outside the residential building with exaggerated steps like a stage actor. With a snap of his fingers, an old car parked in front of the building turned into a luxury extended Lincoln. Stanley, who completed this miracle, elegantly tidied his clothes and then slowly sat in the Lincoln car and drove towards the Coco Bongo Bar. Cool Wesley, who was hiding on the side of the road, looked at the luxury version of Lincoln passing by. He was not very worldly, and his eyes almost popped out. But Wesley might not have noticed it. He was only amazed at the luxury of the Lincoln, but he didn't think there was anything wrong with the green-faced monster turning an old car into a luxury car. This is the power of Loki's mask to bewitch people, which can make people around him unconsciously influenced. Boss, that guy's really problematic. Should we follow him? John, who was more determined, felt that something was wrong. Similarly, Needy and the cross on the side were not bewitched, but their expressions were a little dazed. The reason why the 3 of them could still stay awake was probably because Stanley, who was wearing a mask, did not notice Mike and his group on the side of the road. The magic of the mask was not fully utilized. As for Wesley's special condition, it can only be said that he was too inexperienced. Keep following. We will experience a lot of such supercognitive things in the future. Mike, who had been waiting for half an afternoon, was waiting for this opportunity. Moreover, his team was dealing with this kind of extraordinary event. This time, it was a good opportunity to let John and the other 2 adapt to it first. On the other side, in front of the Coco Bongo nightclub, the gang leader Dorian was receiving guests. This private entertainment venue was the property of the Broadway Underground gang. When Mike and his friends arrived, Stanley and Dorian were no longer in front of the nightclub. Instead, there were several modified asterisk cars parked not far from the nightclub. A perfect version of the book in 16:9. Obviously, Detective Peter's investigation led to Dorian. You stay outside to guard, and I will call for support if necessary. To avoid unnecessary trouble, Mike left John and the other 2 outside. Only Wesley had some opinions on this move, but under the stern gaze of Father Cross, he finally kept his opinions to himself. After Mike arranged for John and the other 2, he took Needy to the door of the nightclub. Because the 2 came in a luxury car, the gang members in charge of reception did not embarrass them. The luxurious Coco Bongo bar was filled with soft blues music and dim lights, and a large stage was set up at the front of the hall. Mike ordered 2 expensive glasses of red wine after entering the bar and took Needy to sit near the stage. At the same time, Mike also saw Stanley, the green-faced weird man, sitting quietly in the shadows in the corner. On the other side, in the small room next to the stage, Dorian was assigning tasks to Tina. No matter what method you use later, you must find out the secret of the green-faced weird man tonight. Enemies are particularly jealous when they meet. Dorian, who found the green-faced weird man coming, now wants to immediately tear this weirdo who ruined his good deeds into pieces. However, since the other party's ability was too abnormal, Dorian did not dare to act rashly before he figured out the other party's true and false. I'll try my best. Tina said with an ugly expression, but after this mission, I hope you won't disturb my life again. Judging from the situation, this woman seems to have a handle on Dorian, and she herself didn't seem to want to have too much to do with the gang. Don't worry, as long as you get the job done this time, we'll be even. Dorian said with a fake smile. As for the future, whatever you want to do, has nothing to do with me. I hope you keep your word. Tina, who got the other party's promise, still looked unhappy. She had dealt with gangs many times and knew that some people's promises were not trustworthy. As time went on, the auditorium in the bar's outdoor hall was gradually filled with people. Just at this time, the stage lights came on, and Tina, wearing a silver-white sequined costume, appeared in the dazzling lights. With the light behind her, she looked like a fairy walking out of a picture. Then, in the soothing sound of the opera, the woman stretched her body like an elf in the night. Not to mention, this kind of Broadway-style opera can also be very seductive when performed. Then, the audience under the stage, who were fascinated, heard whistles and wolf howls. Stanley, the green-faced weirdo, in the corner, even turned his head into a werewolf. Among the wolf howls, his was the loudest. Interesting. Mike smiled as he watched the woman performing on the stage. With the ability to eavesdrop on women's thoughts, he heard a lot of interesting things in their minds. Chapter 369, The Power of Change. Out of a woman's sixth sense, Tina is more certain than anyone that Stanley is the green-faced thief. At the same time, she has also seen the other party's fighting power. After wearing a mask, this woman is now planning in her mind how to let the green-faced thief help her get rid of the control of the gang. I have to say that this idea is very smart, but before implementing the plan, Tina still needs to determine what Stanley's character is like after wearing the mask. After all, no one wants to get out of the wolf's den and into the tiger's mouth. Besides, to be honest, the image of the green-faced weird man is indeed a bit strange in the eyes of ordinary people. But Tina didn't know that she frequently observed the behavior of the green-faced weird man in the corner and was misunderstood by the other party as her winking at her. Finally, the green-faced weird man, who couldn't suppress his excitement, stood up. After a whirlwind, Stanley, wearing an exaggerated zoot suit, appeared on the stage. Imagination attribute plus 99. Prank experience plus 88. Dance experience plus 66. Divine skill. Transformation power. Characteristic. On the stage, Stanley transformed into an umbrella and danced to Singing in the Rain in a funny way. A lot of strange light balls burst out from him, among which there was exactly the characteristic light ball that Mike wanted. Transformation power. As long as you believe in your heart, you can transform into anything. It is indeed worthy of being the power of God. This ability is a bit like a weakened version of the power of thinking. Of course, this magical skill also has its shortcomings. When the transformed object leaves the master's range of thought, it will return to its original state. Needy, this is for you. Mike, who has gained a new ability, casually turned the wine glass in his hand into a bright rose. Needy, who had a cold face throughout the whole process, saw the rose in front of her, and her eyes fluctuated for a moment, and then took it, as if nothing had happened. On the other side, Dorian, who was sitting in a special seat on one side of the stage, finally broke down when he saw the green-faced weird man who had ruined his good deeds dancing happily in front of him. This was a naked taunt. Kill him for me. The gang leader, who was overwhelmed by anger, chose to solve everything with force. Then, gunshots rang out in the bar. Dozens of gang members hiding in the dark approached the green-faced weird man on the stage while firing. However, the fire at the city gate affected the fish in the pond. Bullets flew around, and the bar was in chaos. Several unlucky people in the audience were accidentally injured by bullets in the panic. Because of Mike's position, many bullets flew towards him. However, when these bullets approached him within a certain range, their speed would become slower and slower, and finally formed a circle of bullets 1 meter away. Then, like pearls falling on a jade plate, they fell to the ground with crisp sounds. Needy's reaction was not slow either. At the moment the gunshot rang out, she covered in front of Mike. After seeing that the other party was not in danger, she took out a small pistol and knocked down several gang members who were approaching. At the same time, some gangsters who were shooting randomly were also knocked down by special bullets flying from nowhere. Obviously, John and the other two who stayed outside were giving Mike military support. On the other side, the green-faced weird man who was dancing on the stage was caught off guard by the sudden attack and was a little sluggish. After all, from a realistic point of view, even if Stanley wore a Loki mask, he was still the bank clerk in his heart. Just when he was stunned, Tina, who was on the stage, was almost injured by a stray bullet. Then, the woman reacted quickly. In high heels, she walked to the edge of the stage in a few steps to avoid the bullets, and then rushed down the stairs. The position was just right, just where Mike was sitting. It was this correct move that saved her life. "Madam, you are safe." Feeling the softness in his arms, Mike patted the woman's trembling shoulders. Tina then realized that she was lying in the arms of a handsome young man in an indecent posture. There was also a gothic woman with cold eyes next to her, staring at her unkindly. Sorry. Tina stood up with a slightly red face. Unexpectedly, her feet slipped, and she sat back on Mike's lap again. Stanley on the other side of the stage, after the initial shock, finally realized that he had superpowers with the mask on. So, his body seemed to have turned into rubber, and he twisted left and right exaggeratedly to avoid all the bullets. Ding ding, counter-attack time. After a whirlwind, Stanley, who had adapted to the rhythm, turned himself into a western cowboy with a green head, holding an old-fashioned revolver in his hand. However, before the duel began, the revolver in his hand flew out automatically, as if it had been hit. I was shot at the same time. The green-faced weird man even exaggeratedly covered his abdomen and fell into the arms of a gangster who rushed up. It was not until the funny Stanley was surrounded by gang members with guns pointed at him that the leader Dorian stepped forward. Dorian, who had been paying attention to the green-faced weird man, might not have noticed that his brothers had lost more than a dozen in the brief melee just now. Most of them were the work of Needy and John. The correct version is available on the 16:9 book forum. On the stage, Dorian looked at the green-faced weird man who was performing a suicide note after being shot and talking nonsense, and shouted loudly, "Don't try to get away with it. Where did you hide my money? Hand it over quickly." Hearing the other party mention the money, Stanley, who had had enough fun, immediately became energetic. After another whirlwind, he changed into a bank professional suit, and there was a tax printer in front of him. With the sound of keyboards being clattered, the green-faced weird man said in an exaggerated tone, "The prices in this bar are too expensive. As the owner of this place, you need to pay taxes of 100 million yuan. Sir, please pay the taxes yourself." During the working day, Stanley tore off the tax receipt and handed it to the little leader Dorian politely. "You dare to play tricks on me?" Looking at the receipt in front of him, Dorian was furious and ordered again angrily, "Shoot him." Fierce gunshots rang out again, and Stanley, who had experienced it once, twisted left and right confidently again. "Unfortunately, you still missed the target this time." After the gunshots stopped, Stanley tidied his clothes elegantly amid the mockery. After that, he had time to conjure himself a glass of champagne and drank it in big gulps. Just from the champagne water that came out of his body, it can be seen that the gangsters' attacks just now were not all off target. It can be seen that Stanley, wearing a mask, is no longer afraid of guns and cannons. Everything that happened just now was just him teasing the gang members. Now, no matter how stupid Dorian was, he understood that the green-faced weird man in front of him had been playing tricks on him. Similarly, he also realized that he really couldn't do anything to him. But soon, Dorian saw the extremely beautiful Tina under the stage from the corner of his eye. A beautiful plan immediately appeared in his mind. "I advise you to hand over my money and tell me the source of your ability. Otherwise, I will kill Tina." Dorian, who was executing the plan, threatened the green-faced weird man while rushing to the stage, trying to hold Tina hostage. He could see that this green-faced weird man was definitely interested in Tina. But before he could rush to the stage, Needy, who was standing next to Mike, stepped forward and knocked him out with a knife. At the same time, Mike also activated the power of transformation and turned the guns in the hands of the gang members into poisonous snakes. Oh, the gang has met its nemesis. As the gang members threw their guns to the ground in fear, Stanley, who saw that Tina was safe, celebrated exaggeratedly. Then, He seemed to suddenly realize that someone had the same ability as him. Stanley's expression gradually became surprised and finally chose to run away. This is the fear of normal people facing unknown events. After a whirlwind, the green-faced monster turned into a giant green Bugs Bunny. As soon as this giant Bugs Bunny appeared, it seemed to be greatly frightened and suddenly rushed out of the bar. Chapter 370, The Power of Change, continued. Outside the Coco Bongo bar, Chief Inspector Peter, who was squatting here, had already begun to gather his men when he heard the gunshots in the bar, preparing to go in and investigate the situation. However, the gunshots in the bar came and went quickly. Just as Chief Inspector Peter and his men were about to push the door of the bar opened automatically. A humanoid Bugs Bunny with long green ears appeared gorgeously in front of the detectives. Ah! Amid the chaotic exclamations, not only the detectives were startled, but Bugs Bunny also opened his mouth in surprise. Do you want to dance the bunny dance? The startled Bugs Bunny Stanley did not forget to make a joke after reacting. After a whirlwind, he changed himself into a circus clown costume, holding 2 hand drums in his hands and a long whistle in his mouth. As the Loki mask's ability to deceive people was activated, the detectives forgot themselves and followed Stanley, dancing a cheerful bunny dance. On the other side, Mike in the bar had already obtained the ability he wanted, and the only thing left was to complete the MIB headquarters mission. Recover the Loki mask with special abilities. Needy, I'll leave this to you for now. I'll come back to you after I finish my business. As soon as he finished speaking, Mike turned into a gust of wind and chased out of the bar. Stanley, who was dancing happily with the detectives at the door, saw Mike chasing out and quickly dropped the rattle in his hand and ran towards the dark streets around. Captain, why are you here? Without the temptation of the mask, Chief Inspector Peter immediately sobered up. Just looking at his expression, it seems that he didn't remember the previous dance very clearly. The gang leader who robbed the bank is in the bar. You can go and arrest him. Mike, who still had a mission to do, only had time to explain before he disappeared in front of the chief inspector at a speed far beyond that of an ordinary person. Then, in the dark streets of Broadway, 2 figures, one green and one black, moved quickly in the night, one in front and one behind. As time goes by, the black figure behind can be seen approaching the green figure in front at a speed visible to the naked eye. Kang Mang, boy, what do you want from me? Stanley stopped decisively when he was about to be caught up. He changed himself into a cool black suit, and his green face was looming under the white gentleman's hat. With a thick cigar in his mouth, he posed in a self-proclaimed cool posture, and his tone of voice deliberately became low. Cool guy? Mike stared at the deliberately handsome, green-faced weird man in front of him with amusement and said, leave the mask, it's a bit dangerous for you. As mentioned earlier, the Loki mask has the ability to amplify the inner desires of human beings, including the desire to kill. Stanley has not been controlled by the mask to start killing, probably because he is a good person deep down. But under the temptation of the mask, God knows how long his kindness can last. Want a mask? Catch up with me. When it comes to the mask, Stanley's emotions seem to be excited. After a flashy whirlwind, he changed himself into a sprint sportswear and even added a cool red cape on his back. I'll count to 3, and then we'll start the long distance race. Stanley, wearing a mask, never forgot to be funny all the time. Before running away, he had a starting gun in his hand and said seriously, let me make it clear first. No one is allowed to start early. I'm going to count 3. After a burst of after images, Stanley disappeared from the spot. Obviously, someone stole the ball from the inside and started early. A few minutes later, Stanley, who thought he had gotten rid of Mike, hid in a hidden corner of the block and pretended to wipe the non-existent sweat from his forehead. Then, he stuck to the wall, looked out carefully, showed an exaggerated smile, and shouted, cheers, Mr. Stanley won the championship. But before he could be proud for long, Mike's voice suddenly came to his ears. Are you looking for me? On the other side of the wall, Mike was standing in the shadows with his hands folded across his chest. As Stanley turned and ran away with his red cape in a cry of surprise. However, of the two people with the same ability, Mike's physique was stronger, and he also had the abnormal, bullet time ability. In this case, he quickly caught up with the panicked Stanley again. He looked relaxed, and it was obvious that he still had some strength left. On the other side, Stanley, who had used all his strength, finally gave up the idea of escaping. "You force me to do this." Stanley, who was forced to stop in an open space, conjured up a pair of boxing gloves for himself. Then, a boxing ring rose from around him, trapping himself and Mike inside. "Come on." Stanley pounded his boxing gloves twice with both hands, then jumped and used a swing punch. The Loki mask can amplify the negative emotions in human hearts, which makes Stanley look a little crazy now. A perfect version in the 16:9 book and 1 forum. But when he came to Mike and tried to punch him, he saw an alloy shield in his opponent's hand, and then an exaggerated hammer. "You cheated." This was Stanley's last thought, before he was knocked unconscious by the hammer. A few minutes later, Mike sent Stanley, who had lost the power of the mask, back to his apartment. Have a sweet dream. Before leaving, Mike did not forget to help Stanley take away the 100 million dirty money he had stolen. The power of change, the rice dollar in the next closet, was turned into a check of the same amount. After that, Mike, who came out of the house lightly, got himself a set of flying equipment and experienced the fun of flying in the air. When he returned to the Coco Bongo bar again, the little leader Dorian and a group of gang members had been taken away by the detectives in a car. In the huge bar, except for Needy and John, only Chief Inspector Peter and Tina were left. "Captain, you came at the right time. This lady said she is your friend. What do you think?" Seeing Mike coming back, Chief Inspector Peter immediately came to greet him. Although he caught the gang members who robbed the bank tonight, the huge amount of money lost in the bank was still not recovered. Therefore, the detective chief has no time to get entangled with Tina, a woman who is suspected to be Dorian's accomplice. But this woman insisted that she was Mike's friend. In the bar, facing Tina's pleading expression, Mike, who read the other party's little thoughts, said to Detective Peter, "I can prove to her that she and Dorian are indeed not the same kind of people." "That's good. I'll leave the person to you." In a hurry to deal with Tina's trouble, Detective Peter hurriedly left the bar after completing the personnel handover. The 3-day deadline for closing the case is coming, and Peter has no time to delay here. But his journey to find the lost cash in the bank is doomed to be futile. Of course, Detective Peter, who caught criminals like Dorian, should be safe in the end, even if he failed to recover the money. After all, the detective's emergency mission was able to arrest the culprit and bring him to justice, which is already a great achievement. Coco Bongo, at the bar, Mike, who had made a fortune, generously gave John and his friends a attendance fee before sending them home. "Tell me, how are you going to solve your problem?" Mike asked when Tina was the only outsider left. From her thoughts, Mike could be sure that this woman had no bad intentions towards him. But one thing is one thing, the wrong things she had done before cannot be easily written off. Chapter 371. New member. Tina seemed to know what Mike wanted to ask and quickly explained, "Although I helped Dorian and his gang before, I was forced to do it. I can assure you that I have never done anything that harms the world." Then, in order to increase her persuasiveness, Tina briefly recounted her own experience. It turned out that when this woman was in high school, her parents died in an accident, leaving only her and a pair of young brothers and sisters at home. Since then, Tina, who was forced to shoulder the burden of family life, had to choose to drop out of school and go out to earn money for her brothers and sisters. The reason why she helped Dorian to carry out the bank robbery plan this time was because her brothers and sisters happened to be promoted to middle school at the same time this year and needed to pay a large amount of tuition. She had no money and had to borrow high interest loans from the local gang. After that, under the compounding interest, Tina, who was unable to repay the debt, could only repay the debt by doing things for the gang. This is also the reason why she and Dorian were at odds in appearance. The story is exciting, and then, Mike did not feel sympathy after listening to the woman's story. What surprised him was that the woman's words were actually true. However, there were so many pitiful people, but this was not a reason for the other party to do bad things. "So what do you want? Do you want to arrest me?" Seeing Mike's inhumane look, Tina chose to break the jar. At the same time, the woman's previous good impression of Mike was also declining sharply. "Let's do this. Join us, and your previous things will be written off." Mike's expression eased, and he said his true intention. The woman's life experience made her very good at guessing people's hearts, and she was very suitable to help collect intelligence. Moreover, her previous plan to use external forces to deal with Dorian was very smart. Although the plan was not very successful in the end, Mike could be sure that with this woman's cleverness, she would definitely not be a drag after joining his ex-team. "No problem, I can join you now." After hearing Mike's proposal, Tina quickly responded. That urgent look seemed to be afraid that the other party would regret it if it was a second late. "Don't make a decision in a hurry. I can't guarantee your safety after joining Team X." Then, Mike briefly explained to the woman the nature of his team. Team X deals with extraordinary events, and the dangers are self-evident for ordinary people. "I'm sure I want to join you." After listening to the explanation, Tina still made the same choice. Perhaps it was a woman's sixth sense. The woman had an inexplicable trust in Mike. "Very good. Congratulations on becoming the sixth member of the team." Mike smiled and said, "Next, I will tell you about the treatment. After joining the X special team, the basic salary is 10,000 yuan per month, and after each special task is completed, you will get some bonuses based on the contribution of the task. As a new member of the team, Tina's treatment is similar to Wesley. 10,000 yuan, and there are bonuses. Are you sure you are right?" When the average salary is only 2 or 3,000, Tina is a little surprised at Mike's generosity. She has been in society for several years and has been raising her younger brothers and sisters. She has long known how hard it is to make money. $10,000 a month is enough for Tina to solve the dilemma at home. At this time, the woman was already thankful for her previous choice. "That's the situation." Mike gave a positive answer and then continued, "You can leave now. I will notify you when there is a mission." Tina, who was sure that she was not dreaming, was a little reluctant to leave. The good job plus the previous life-saving grace made the woman's favor for Mike burst. Studies have shown that when people are in danger, they are easy to have a good impression of the opposite sex around them. It's a bit like the suspension bridge effect. Tina's previous situation is very similar to this, not to mention that Mike is so handsome. No matter how you calculate it, she seems to have no loss. "Well, my house is quite close to here. Do you want to have a cup of coffee?" With the blessing of many factors, Tina, who was a little dizzy, rashly issued an invitation. It's almost midnight now. A woman inviting a man to her home is very ambiguous. Drink coffee? Sure, such a beautiful woman came to her door herself. Mike had no reason to refuse. "This is where I live. The environment may be a little bad." Tina, who got off the Tesla luxury car, looked a little nervous when she came to her own civilian building. Only then did she feel that her previous invitation seemed a little hasty. It's a very warm house. You can see that the person who designed it spent a lot of time on it. Looking at the small house full of life in front of him, Mike did not hesitate to praise it. To be honest, Tina's house is not worse than Connor's grandma's residential building. What's more, this is the Big Apple. From a certain perspective, if Tina didn't have younger brothers and sisters to support, she would definitely be a little rich woman. Right, this house was designed and built by my father himself. It really took a lot of effort at that time. Hearing the praise, Tina's face bloomed with a bright smile. Then, she proudly introduced the origin of the house. A perfect version of the book in 1619. "Sister, you are finally back. You don't know how worried we are about you." When Tina led Mike and the others into the door, two little guys, aged 11 or 12, immediately surrounded them. The two children, who were about the same age as little Sheldon, were Tina's brother and sister. "Jerry, Katie, why haven't you rested yet so late?" Although Tina said something disdainful, she had a doting smile on her face. "I told you a long time ago that if I come back late, you don't have to wait for me." The two little guys whose hair was being rubbed by their sister also looked sensible and well behaved. At the same time, the two little guys also cleverly glanced at Mike and Neddy, who came in later. Of course, the two children were mainly looking at Neddy. After all, Neddy's dark dress style was too special for children. "These are my sister's friends, Mike and Neddy." Tina noticed the little movements of the two little guys, so she generously introduced Mike and the others to her brother and sister. Well, it's getting late, you should go and rest quickly. After satisfying the curiosity of the two little guys, Tina personally sent the two back to the room. A few minutes later, she carefully prepared 2 cups of coffee and walked back to the living room again. You sit down for a while, I'll go change clothes. After serving the coffee, the woman, who was still wearing a sequined performance dress, said that she was going back to her room. No, this dress is good. Mike stood up and went to the woman. The bright silver evening dress was very prominent on her body. The atmosphere was here, and Tina understood what Mike meant with just a glance. Then, the two went to a separate and warm small room together. As for Needy behind her, she was like a transparent person, sensible, and stayed in the living room. Charm attribute +20. Temperament attribute +10. Flexibility attribute +5. Dancing experience +20. Before long, a fierce battle broke out in the small room. Tina, wearing a sequined dress, forced herself to hold back the chanting in order not to disturb other people in the house. However, the more she did this, the more motivated Mike was. Possessing the ability to eavesdrop on women's thoughts, he understands women the best, and he has developed countless uses for the power of change he just got. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 372 Bubble. The next morning, when the sun shone into the cabin, Mike, who had woken up refreshed, covered the woman next to him with a blanket before leaving the room. In the living room, Jerry and Katie had already gotten up and were eating breakfast, a bowl of oatmeal porridge made with milk, plus an apple. It is worth mentioning that the two little guys also prepared a breakfast for Neddy, who had stayed in the living room all night. "Are you my sister's boyfriend?" Seeing Mike come out, Katie, the younger sister of the two little guys, asked curiously. At the same time, the two clever little guys secretly glanced at Neddy, who was eating breakfast with an expressionless face. In their little heads, they were a little confused about what the relationship between Mike and this cold-faced big sister was. Children's intuition is very sensitive. They can feel that Neddy's eyes looking at Mike are different from others. "I can be considered your sister's boyfriend," Mike explained to the two little guys with a smile. If nothing unexpected happens, Mike doesn't mind having another beautiful girlfriend. Moreover, he was very satisfied with Tina's performance last night. "You are really my sister's boyfriend?" Hearing the affirmative answer, the two little guys exclaimed at the same time, and the expressions on their faces seemed to be happy for their sister to find such an excellent boyfriend. After all, whether from the appearance or the clothes, Mike is not like an ordinary person. The temperament on his body is not comparable to ordinary people. After having the relationship of brother-in-law, the two little guys became more friendly to Mike. Next, the two little guys enthusiastically prepared a breakfast for Mike. A bowl of extra large oatmeal porridge and a big apple. "Are you working too? I mean, you don't look old, you look younger than our sister." The dining table then turned into an interrogation meeting. Jerry and Katie, the two little guys, were really too curious about their sister's boyfriend. In the small room, Tina, who had been tired all night, was awakened by the noise in the living room. She lifted the blanket and quietly put away the blood-stained sheet below, and then squinted her eyes and walked into the living room. "Okay, Jerry, Katie, you have too many questions." Tina walked out of the room and happened to see her younger brother and sister chasing Mike to ask questions. After seeing that Mike did not look impatient, her expression eased a little, and then she deliberately frowned and said to her younger brother and sister, "Hurry up and eat. Don't forget that you still have to go to the weekend tutoring class, unlike the public middle school that advocates happy education." In order to make her younger brother and sister have a promising future, Tina sent them to a private middle school that implements elite education. At the same time, in order to improve the success rate, the teaching style of private middle schools is more stringent, including weekend tutoring. Because of the unexpected factor of Mike at home today, Jerry Katie wasted a lot of breakfast time. It was about to miss the normal school time. It's over. After being reminded, the two little guys who also realized that they were going to be late exclaimed and quickly ate the oatmeal in front of them. Then the two of them took the apples on the table at the same time, blinking their eyes at Tina, wanting her to send them to school. The community private middle school where the two little guys go is quite far from here. If they walk to school now, they will definitely be late. Seeing that Tina could not bear the pleading of her younger brother and sister and was about to go out, Mike said, "You have a good rest. Leave it to me to take them to school." Tina, who had just experienced a fierce battle, still looked very tired. Then, without waiting for the woman to answer, Mike asked Nidhi to take the two little guys out first. "I will tell you more about your work later. Also, this is your advance salary for this month and next month." After only two people were left in the room, Mike took out a stack of rice dollars. Although this behavior was vulgar, Tina really needed this money now. Tina, who gave herself to the man in front of her, hesitated for a moment and took the mane from the other party. Then, she gave him a big hug. After Mike went out, he saw the two little guys exclaiming around the Tesla luxury car at the door. They looked very energetic. Not long after, with a violent roar, Jerry and Katie walked out of the Tesla luxury car in front of the gate of William Private Middle School run by the community, in the surprised eyes of all the friends. Brother-in-law, goodbye. Jerry and Nidhi, who had gained some face in the school, waved goodbye politely to Mike who sent them there, and then ran into the school gate happily. Mike, Jordan, whom you asked me to pay attention to, seems to be making a big move recently. Mike, who was preparing to go back to his luxurious villa in the car, unexpectedly received a call from Chris at the company. A perfect version of the book in 1619. Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street. This man has extraordinary eloquence and extraordinary business sensitivity. He can be used as a business weathervane. On the phone, Chris continued, "According to the information I have collected, the other party seems to be no longer satisfied with being a stockbroker and is now preparing to promote the listing of a small shoemaking company." Listing? Issuing stocks? Cashing out? For Jordan, whose assets are less than 10 million, the risk of completing this set of procedures is very high. Please organize the information about Jordan. I will go to the company later, and we will talk then. The situation in the business world is like the battlefield, which often changes rapidly. It is impossible to explain it clearly over the phone in a short time, so Mike decided to go to the company and meet with Collison. Then again, after being a hands-off boss for so long, he really needs to go to his own company to observe. "Mike, this is Caroline. Do you remember that we had an appointment yesterday?" Mike, who had just hung up the phone with Chris, received a call from the eldest daughter of the Channing family. It can be heard that the eldest daughter, who was stood up, had a strong resentment in her tone. "Sorry, Caroline. I had something urgent to do last night and missed our appointment." Mike said it sincerely. "How about we change the appointment to today, and I will find you after I finish my work." Caroline, who is only of ours now, is actually not worth Mike's attention. Under Caroline's guidance, the two people's contact mode also tends to be more fairy tale style. Mike feels like he is playing house with a little princess in an ivory tower. "Today," Caroline said with a hint of arrogance on the phone. "If you insist, then our date will be changed to this afternoon. By the way, are you in any trouble over there? Do you need help?" In an ultra-luxury independent private villa in the wealthy area of Apple City, Caroline, sitting in front of the mirror, domineeringly confirmed the date and unconsciously put on a look of smugness on her face. Then, the girl looked at herself in the mirror with light dark circles under her eyes, and her expression became distressed again. This is also Mike's fault, because of his broken appointment last night. Caroline, the rich lady, did not sleep well the whole night yesterday. "It's settled," Mike agreed casually. "My business is almost done. Don't worry. See you in the afternoon." Chapter 373 Bubble continued. "Is that our boss? He looks really young. And he's very handsome." Although Mike had rarely come to his King investment company, the employees knew that they had a young big boss through Chris, the supervisor. What they didn't expect was that the big boss behind the scenes was so young and so handsome. A perfect template for a winner in life. At this time, after watching Mike go to the supervisor's office, the employees couldn't help gossiping. Among them, the female employees looked the most excited. "It's working time now, please concentrate." Jessie, who was dressed in a professional suit and was about to deliver coffee to Mike, reminded the employees who were absent from work when she passed by the staff office area. Because of her close relationship with Mike, Jess's position in the company is not low. She majored in economics and has completely adapted to the work here. Looking at the employees' reactions, she has even established her own prestige in the company. Donnie as of, it was he who recommended Steve Madden's small shoe factory to Jordan. The three of them hit it off and are now preparing to list the shares of that small shoe factory. In the general manager's office, Chris was standing in front of a small blackboard covered with photos of people, introducing the information he had to Mike. Jordan Belfort, as the future trendsetter of Wall Street, is indeed very charismatic. So much so that Donnie Azoff, a genius salesman, resolutely quit his original job after seeing his ability and followed him to start a business. And Steve, the boss of the small shoe factory they are going to operate this time, is Donnie's childhood friend. It is precisely because of this relationship that Steve may not have thought that Donnie and Jordan were only going to make a fortune and run away this time. The small boss who was kept in the dark is probably still thanking his childhood friend for helping him develop the small shoe factory. According to your estimate, when will their small shoe factory shares be listed? Mike asked after understanding the general situation. Looking at Jordan's current promotion progress, the shares of that small shoe factory are conservatively estimated to be listed at the end of next month, and of course it may be at the beginning of next month. Out of caution, Chris did not dare to give a positive answer. Perhaps he felt that the current Migo economy was expanding too rapidly, like an ineffectively expanding colorful bubble. Although the appearance is beautiful, the inside has long been overwhelmed. Therefore, Jordan's decision to make money this time was very quick, firm and reckless. It seemed that he would call it a day after this deal. Not long after, he used his excellent eloquence to win over a large number of middle-class entrepreneurs and some middle-class families who dreamed of getting rich. That means that the small shoe factory will be listed in a dozen days, if it is fast. Mike muttered to himself and said, "Let's do this, Chris. I still have some spare money here. You can look at the situation and we will also get involved, if there is a chance." After speaking, he motioned to Neddy, who came with him, to open the huge travel bag she brought. As the zipper of the travel bag was opened, neatly stacked large denomination US dollars appeared in front of everyone. Nearly 100 million US dollars, with a volume of about 2 cubic meters. Thanks to Nedda's excellent physique, otherwise she wouldn't be able to carry such a heavy thing. This money was the spoils that Mike brought back from Stanley's house. Now he didn't have much to do with the money, so after thinking about it, he decided to continue to invest the money in the company and let it make money. Looking at the vast amount of cash in front of him, even Chris, who lived in Wall Street, was shocked and almost speechless. Chris wanted to ask Mike how the other party got so much money, but after a moment of hesitation, he wisely skipped the stupid question. "No problem, with this money, I will keep a close eye on Jordan's actions. If necessary, I will take action to share a share." As a former economic advisor, Chris is not short of the vision of making money. He can see that Jordan's operation this time will definitely make a lot of money. "You can handle the investment, but remember to help me keep an eye on Jordan. If nothing unexpected happens, he is a rare talent." Compared to making money on a project, Mike values special talents like Jordan more. After instructing Chris on the priorities of the matter, Mike continued, "Also, from now on, I want you to slowly stop our investment in real estate. At the same time, shift the focus of work to supporting small and medium-sized enterprises in the real economy such as food, medical care, and retail. Now the economic growth of Migo depends most on the inflated housing prices. Smart people can see that the economic bubble driven by housing prices alone is like a castle in the air that will explode sooner or later. It is definitely a wise choice to get out before the housing price economy collapses." Jordan did a good job in this regard, focusing on the real economy such as the shoe industry. Of course, he only wanted to make a fortune, and his vision was still not long-term enough. He only saw that the collapse of the real estate economy would affect other industries. But he didn't know that in the economic recession, people still need food, clothing, housing, transportation, and medical care. The risk resistance of small and medium-sized enterprises in this area in special times under the general environment will exceed people's imagination. I was just about to tell you this. The inflated housing prices now make me feel uneasy. I'm planning to sell some of the properties we bought at low prices before the housing prices fall. Obviously, Chris is also a smart man and has already sensed the signs of the storm. I'm at ease with you doing things. Mike smiled and gave him full affirmation. At this time, Jess walked into the office with a cup of coffee he had carefully made. What's going on? Jess, who had just entered the door, saw the exaggerated bag of Maine on the ground at a glance. A perfect version of the book in 1619. It's not the girl's fault for making a fuss. It's really too shocking to see 100 million in cash in front of her. Mike, on his side, took a sip of the coffee from the girl's hand and did not rush to explain the source of the huge amount of cash. Instead, he simply explained the content of the conversation in the office just now to the other party. This can also be regarded as training talents for his team. Next, Mike had a deep chat with Jess and Chris about the future development direction of the company. By learning from Jordan's approach, King Investment Company can support small and medium-sized enterprises to go public while unknowingly collecting a large amount of funds from the stock market. With the $100 million in cash that Mike brought, this plan has great potential. When it was almost noon, Mike walked out of Chris's private office and went outside to meet the employees of his investment company. As a gift for the first formal meeting, he promised to give the employees a performance bonus of 1% more than other companies. Don't underestimate this 1% performance bonus. For an investment company with millions of funds flowing every minute, as long as the employees are willing to work hard to live a rich life, there is no problem. Great. Long live the boss. Boss, I love you so much. What do workers care about most? As long as the salary is enough, it is not a problem to work like a cow or a horse. Mike's approach won him the support of a group of employees in the company. Among them, several female employees took advantage of the atmosphere and boldly spoke their minds. Mike, who has the ability to eavesdrop on women's hearts, also felt the happiness of these female employees. This situation can be said to be a *** heart available. In his joy, Mike booked a mid-range restaurant downstairs and treated the employees to a simple meal. This was just a piece of cake for him, but it was very effective in winning people's hearts. His image in the minds of the employees has changed from a mysterious behind-the-scenes boss to a handsome, wealthy, and approachable boss. After a harmonious lunch, Mike got on the luxurious Tesla sports car and drove to the wealthy area where Caroline lived. Chapter 374 Date. Susan, what do you think of me wearing this? Caroline, who was wearing a full-length mirror with delicate makeup, asked the same question for the nth time. At this time, she was wearing a cool long dress at home, and her long legs were looming, which brought her advantages to the extreme. This hazy feeling is extremely lethal to men. Very beautiful, Miss the family nanny Susan, with a hint of aunt's smile, also gave a positive answer again. It should be mentioned here that Miss Caroline, who is willful and capricious to outsiders, is unexpectedly friendly to those close to her. Therefore, Susan, the family nanny who is nearly 40 years old, gets along very well with Caroline. It's a bit like the meaning of elders and juniors. And Susan, who knows the intention of this young lady in her family this time, also sincerely hopes that the other party's plan will go smoothly. Isn't it a bit informal to wear like this? Hearing the nana's compliment, Caroline seemed to be still not satisfied with her image. It's just that she has changed more than a dozen sets of style clothes and has tried almost all the popular women's clothing this year. Forget it, let's go with this one. Caroline turned around twice in front of the full-length mirror and finally made a decision. Then, she said to the nanny seriously, Susan, remember to remind me to buy some more clothes when you have time. I'm almost out of clothes. Okay, Miss Susan bowed and replied. Knowing the temper of a young lady, she glanced at the closet in the room, filled with beautiful clothes, and didn't say anything to spoil the mood. That's it for now. Now you go and help me take care of the mushroom soup in the kitchen. I'm going to use it to entertain guests later. In front of the mirror, Caroline has already focused on her makeup. I was worried about my dark circles, and I didn't want Mike to see it later. The luxurious villa where Caroline is now is one of the birthday gifts her father gave her when she was 16. This wealthy area not far from Wall Street covers a large area and has complete green facilities. It has a sense of quiet in a bustling city. Mike, who entered the villa under the guidance of the maid, saw Caroline waiting behind the door in cool clothes at a glance. Don't mention it, although this rich lady is thin, her long legs are really nice. Hey, what's that on your face? Before the girl could start to complain about the missed appointment yesterday, Mike took the initiative to go to her and asked with a puzzled look, Is it dark circles? Caroline, who was hit by Mike's face, looked a little flustered. The girl was already annoyed that she didn't check her makeup carefully before. No, it's a flower. Mike's right hand flashed in front of the girl's eyes, and a beautiful rose appeared out of thin air. It's amazing. How did you do it? Caroline was completely attracted by the magic in front of her, and even the dark circles were thrown behind her. This is the charm of close-up magic, giving people unexpected surprises. Of course, Mike would not tell the girl that this bright rose was made by him using the power of change. For you, I hope you can forgive me for breaking the appointment yesterday. Mike smiled and handed the rose over. The sun shines through the huge French windows, casting a layer of warm light on the villa. Caroline, who received the flowers, looked at the affectionate eyes of the man in front of her, and her head was a little dizzy. This fairy tale-like dreamy scene was exactly what she dreamed of. Miss, lunch is ready. Just then, the family nanny Susan, who couldn't bear to watch, interrupted her young lady's flower-crazy behavior. Caroline dressed herself up beautifully today, just to conquer Mike through her own charm. But looking at the current situation, it is a bit different from her plan. On the contrary, it feels a bit like losing both the lady and the army. Well, okay, I know. After the nanny reminded Caroline, she realized that her behavior of staring at Mike was very impolite. After she cleared her mind, she put away the roses and asked, Mike, have you had lunch? Do you want to eat together? Of course, no problem. I'm not polite. Mike, who has the ability to eavesdrop on women's hearts, knows that the girl has prepared a surprise for him at the table, so there is no need to live up to the other party's good intentions. Hypocrisy. On the other side, Neddy, who had just had lunch with Mike on Wall Street, felt uncomfortable looking at the bright smile on the man's face. Madam, we have prepared another lunch for you. Please follow me. While Caroline was taking Mike to the restaurant, the family nanny Susan stopped Neddy. Her action was obviously to create an opportunity for her daughter to be alone with Mike. No, I've eaten. Neddy rejected the nana's kindness and then quickly followed Mike. Nanny Susan, who didn't understand the situation of the cold-faced girl, didn't make trouble. In the luxurious restaurant, Caroline looked at Neddy following in, and her expression was a little surprised at first, and then she smiled and invited, Neddy, didn't you have lunch either? Obviously, Neddy, who had a short haircut and dressed in a gothic dark style, did not meet Caroline's definition of beauty. Therefore, in her heart, Neddy did not pose a threat to her. Mike and I have already had lunch. Neddy also did not make much eye contact with Caroline. After she finished speaking, she stood not too far from Mike. However, it was precisely because of her words that the atmosphere in the restaurant became strange. Well, I did have something with Neddy at noon, but I don't think I was full. Mike spoke first, expressing his expectation for lunch at Caroline's house. At the same time, he turned his head and glanced at Neddy behind him. A perfect version of the book in 1619. It is hard to believe that the other party's sabotage behavior just now was not intentional. It doesn't matter, I will provide you with food, Caroline replied carelessly, and at the same time, glanced at the cold-faced girl behind Mike. Then, as Susan led the maid to serve the dishes, Caroline introduced the recipe to Mike. Among them, she emphasized the last plate of mushroom cream soup. Soon, the long and gorgeous dining table was filled with various exquisite foods. Judging from the richness, it is not much worse than the specifications of the royal family banquet in Genovia. In terms of taste, the level of Caroline's family chef is much better than that of the chefs in the popular restaurants outside. Precious ingredients plus careful cooking are definitely a rare enjoyment for the taste buds. How do you feel? "Are you satisfied with this simple meal?" Caroline asked with a smile after nearly an hour of dining time. It is obvious that this young lady is also confident in the level of her own chef. "It's delicious," Mike, who had a big meal, praised, especially the mushroom soup, which made me taste the taste of home. "Really?" Caroline showed a huge surprise on her face after receiving the compliment and said, "In fact, I made that mushroom soup specially for you. I hope you like it." As the saying goes, if you want to capture a man's heart, you must first capture his stomach. Mushroom cream soup is the surprise that Caroline prepared for Mike. "I didn't expect you to be so talented in cooking." While the girl was happy, Mike did not hesitate to praise her. To be honest, the mushroom dish tasted good, but it was mediocre among a bunch of delicious dishes. The reason for praising the other party, on the one hand, it is out of politeness, and on the other hand, it is to affirm the other party's efforts. Now the situation is very good, and everyone is happy. "Caroline, thank you for your hospitality. I had a pleasant lunch. Next time when you are free, I will invite you to my villa over there." After staying in Caroline's luxurious villa for a while, Mike wanted to leave. As I said, he didn't have much patience to play house with the girl. Caroline, who was complaining about her brand name bags, said disappointedly, "I was planning for us to go shopping in the commercial district together later. Or go to our private amusement park." Yes, the girl could not think of many things to do with Mike. "Let's make an appointment next time, when we are free." Mike smiled and waved to Caroline, and then walked out of the villa with Needy. The relationship is not yet good, and Caroline's status is special. She is more like a goldfish to Mike, who can only be seen but not eaten. Therefore, there is no point in staying in the other party's house. "Susan, do you think I'm a boring person?" Caroline looked a little depressed after watching Mike go away. For the first time, the rich lady realized that her previous life seemed very empty. Chapter 375 Wolf Nature. On Friday in early November, the small shoe factory named Crocodile Leather Shoes by Steve welcomed a listing of the company's shares. Just as Mike guessed, Jordan, who only wanted to make a fortune, acted faster than many people thought. At this time, in a small office in the Wall Street commercial building, Jordan was anxiously waiting for news from the stock market. As time passed, just after noon, Donnie excitedly pushed open the door of the office. "Don't tell me yet, let me guess." Jordan, who had been fidgeting for a long time, observed the expression of his partner and said, "It's good news." Strictly speaking, Donnie, who quit his job and joined Jordan, could only be regarded as the other party's follower at most. And the person who was responsible for operating Steve's small shoe factory shares from beginning to end has always been Jordan. "It's really good news. You can't imagine. 3 minutes. We only took 3 minutes to make more than 12 million in the stock market." Donnie couldn't wait to share the good news. A little known shoe factory, once its shares were listed, made over 10 million. This feat had never happened before, even in the magical Wall Street. It can be said that Jordan broke the Wall Street record of making money by himself. 12 million. Jordan, who created the myth of making money for small and medium-sized enterprises, felt that this result was a bit unreal. He trembled and took out a cigar from his arms, and took a lot of effort to light it. As he exhaled, Jordan's brain became alert under the effect of nicotine. How many of the original shares were sold? Less than 1/3. Donnie's excitement had not yet passed, and he said excitedly, "If all are sold, we can eventually make about 40 million. Jordan, we will become rich now. This is just the beginning. We can make more." Jordan, who had invested nearly 10 million yuan in the small shoe factory because of the early publicity and other matters, was not satisfied with only making 40 million after calming down. He said confidently, "Just wait and see. Under the herd effect, more people will give us money. Now we need to continue to build momentum. The more luxurious the better. Arrange cocktail parties and beauties. I want everyone to know that we have made money, so that they will envy us." Obviously, Jordan wants to make himself a wealthy vein, so that more people will envy him and buy his stocks. And it can be seen that he only wants to make more money and has never thought of giving back even a small part of the money he made in the stock market to develop Steve's small shoe factory. "Leave it to me. Cocktail parties, beauties, yachts will all be there. I can't wait to enjoy life. Donnie is obviously a hedonist. Jordan's proposal just suits his heart. As for the boss Steve on the other side, who gave the shares of the small shoe factory to Jordan and the two to operate, he has now been completely forgotten by the two. At the same time, Mike and Chris, who were staying in the King Investment Company in the Wall Street commercial building, also received first-hand information about Jordan's stock market profits. This man is a well-deserved Wall Street wolf. Listening to the report of his employees, Mike couldn't help but sigh. The person he praised was Jordan, who had just created a business miracle. It is not something that everyone can do to hype up the shares of a small factory with less than 1 million assets to tens of millions in a short period of time. Intelligence and courage are both indispensable. Chris, the successful case is already in front of you. You know what to do. After a while, Mike looked at the other party meaningfully. Of course, Chris gave a positive answer as expected. For him, who has been paying attention to Jordan's movements, it is not difficult to copy the other party's operation. Maybe the effect will be a little worse, but the King Investment Company, which is now a big company, is not afraid of a little trial and error cost. Very good. I'm waiting for your good news. At the same time, I need you to keep an eye on Jordan. Mike smiled and ordered. This time, King Investment Company did not have much opportunity to intervene in the shares of Donnie's small shoe factory, but this is not important. Again, King Investment Company, which is a big company, has a successful case to learn from, and it is only a matter of time to make a lot of money. And for Jordan, a business talent, Mike did not intend to let go. Once the time is right, he will not hesitate to win him over. Unconsciously, more than a month has passed. The investment department in King Investment Company, which Chris is in charge of, has already found several small and medium-sized enterprises. They are just waiting for a wave of hype before issuing shares in a high-profile manner. Mike, on the other hand, has resumed his peaceful college life. He goes to class every day and can go to Tina's house to exchange with the girl about work when he has nothing to do. As for Tina, her main job now is to help Mike collect those rumors and then distinguish the truth from the false. After summarizing them at the end of the month, she will hand over the information to Mike. Jordan, we have made more than 50 million yuan. Why do you look a little unhappy? More than a month of indulgence in sex made Downey, who was already a little bloated, look like he was hollowed out. I'm just a little uneasy. The same month of feasting and drinking made Jordan look a little emaciated. Although making money makes people happy, Jordan's family had some problems while making a lot of money for more than a month. His wife couldn't stand his extravagant life and finally chose to divorce him. This was like being poured cold water on Jordan, who was successful in his career. He seemed to gradually realize that not everyone loves money, and money can't buy everything. Don't be like this, Jordan. It's a loss if your wife divorces you. As a partner who was in the same boat, Donnie also knew some of what happened in Jordan's family. In his opinion, Jordan's wife's choice of divorce was definitely the most wrong choice. Check out the correct version in 16,191 book 1 bar. Let's have another party tonight. I'll prepare 10 *** models for you. I guarantee you'll be satisfied. Donnie's wretched face gave Jordan an expression that all men understand. Obviously, this month of rich life has corroded Donnie's sense of shame. I was just about to tell you this. Now that the shares of the shoe factory have been sold out, we should keep a low profile next. As the black money earned became more and more, Jordan also felt that the money was hot. According to his plan, the two should avoid the monitoring of the relevant departments and secretly launder the grey assets earned in the stock market. Keep a low profile? We are already rich. Why keep a low profile? Donnie has been accustomed to the hedonistic life of the rich. He has also developed bad habits such as spinach and washing powder. Now asking him to return to his previous simple life is tantamount to making things difficult for him. Seeing the little follower out of control, Jordan frowned slightly. At this time, Steve, who had not changed much, found Jordan in the luxurious villa he rented. Donnie and Jordan, the people who bought your stocks have blocked the factory gate. You must find a way to solve it. Steve explained his intention as soon as he opened his mouth. The high-priced stocks sold by Jordan and others through deception and other means have slowly fallen in price because there is no corresponding industrial support. The shareholders who reacted naturally found Steve, the behind-the-scenes boss. Steve was also wronged. Jordan and others never shared their money with him. Now, he was thinking about developing the shoe factory and found Jordan and others and also wanted to ask them for some funds to expand the shoe market. This is now the only way out for the shoe factory. On the one hand, this popularity can be used to grow the shoe factory. On the other hand, this move can also stabilize the hearts of shareholders who have bought shares in the shoe factory. Here is $1 million US. You can use it as you want. After listening to Steve's request, Jordan wrote a check. This is not enough. If you want to satisfy the shareholders, the scale of the shoe factory needs to be expanded urgently. Donnie did not take the check on the table, but analyzed the situation. Okay, Steve. I'm not interested in your small shoe factory at all. Take this money and we'll be even. Jordan interrupted Steve's speech irritably. Strictly speaking, Jordan didn't owe Steve anything. Who told Steve to foolishly hand over all the controlling rights of the small shoe factory before? Take it, Steve. This is 1 million euros. Even if you buy your little shoe factory, it's not worth this much money. Donnie, who hadn't left yet, suddenly persuaded his childhood friend, saying, so, let that damned little shoe factory go to hell. With this money, you can live comfortably for the rest of your life. Faced with his childhood friend's persuasion, Steve finally understood that the other party was a complete bad friend. Looking at Jordan with a cold expression on the sofa, Steve could only hate himself for trusting the wrong person before. The current situation made him really want to turn around and leave. But thinking of his shoe factory and those crazy shareholders, Steve finally picked up the check on the table with frustration. Although 1 million euros is a drop in the bucket for the current shoe factory, it is better than nothing. That's right, what's the point of guarding a little shoe factory? With this money, you can live as freely as us. Donnie didn't know that his childhood friend took the money to continue to develop the shoe factory. Seeing the other party take the money and leave, he smiled and shouted, Steve, if you don't know how to spend the money, remember to come to me again. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.